OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, bang on 7:30 this Tuesday morning. It's a short week, which generally means it's going to be a long week. Nathan, good morning to you. How are you?
How's it going?
No Owen Sheehan today. He's still dancing in the field in Barcelona, even though the concert and the gig has moved on.
It's been described as Europe's Firefest.
Well,
That's what I saw from Owen Sheehan's
Instagram,
Instagram, but I didn't delve any further.
No, me neither.
It didn't make the news, so I don't really care.
Some other stuff, some bad stuff happened.
A load of rich 20-somethings moaning about life.
Oh, the toilets don't have enough blue goo in them. That kind of stuff.
That kind of thing, I'm sure. If you saw Owen Sheehan at Primavera, please do get in touch.
Well, he did actually. He made the schoolboy error of sending us a photograph, and he had gone full Paul Mescal. That's all I'll say.
What? No.
The shorts weren't even Kerry shorts. It looked like they were Dublin shorts. Like Dublin changed shorts. They were. It looked full blown O'Neill's.
Paul Mescal could pull it off.
Funnily enough, I will say this once while he's not here. Owen Sheehan could also pull it off.
Wow.
He was fitting right in.
He was like a Limerick defender with the top off, was he?
Speaking of tops off, did you notice? Oh, you weren't there. Sorry, that wasn't actually a dig.
That's fine. It's fine. I'm prepared for plenty of them.
There was a lot of Tommy Rooney wandering around, going, "Oh, I can't get my clothes on properly at TriAthy on Sunday." You know, basically from the second we arrived to the second we left, Tommy was more often topless than not.
And were you appreciative of it, or?
And I didn't look. I couldn't tell. Anymore. But it was also noticeable that he managed to put his wetsuit on back to front, which made it easy for the cameraman to pick him out because it had a giant medium.
He put it on back to front?
A giant medium across the middle of his back.
Oh my God. How is that even possible? Because they're difficult to get on. I had about an hour-long row with my 10-year-old last night trying to get on a wetsuit to make sure it fit properly and explain that they're meant to be as tight as possible. And even he could get it on the right way around. So how do you get it on the wrong way around?
Maybe it was inside out rather than back to front. I think it was inside out rather than back to front, so you wouldn't automatically have noticed it. The back to front thing is a bit of a warning they give you before the swim, but at that stage it's too late.
I know we're going to get the full debrief, Ger, but I could tell from the tone of your messages over the weekend you were absolutely buzzing.
Well, that was Sunday. Yesterday I nearly died. There was there was the full on, oh my God, this is incredible. Every single pore of my being is filled with adrenaline. And then yesterday, I was lying on the couch wishing death would give me the sweet release that my body craved. But it didn't, and I'm here today. There was definitely a point yesterday. No, I didn't this time.
Good man.
It's a massive quantum before. And also, I beat you, which is the most important thing. Because how did you get on, Nathan?
Well, actually, I got an email yesterday from TriAthy with my all the details of my time, and it was actually, I think I might just print it off and frame it.
It was pretty good, was it? Yeah.
It was quite good.
Yeah, so very good. Well, we'll get into the details of that later on. You were at the under-21s last night.
Under-21s, yeah.
The lone bright spark in Irish international football at the moment. I mean, not the lone. Obviously, the women are pretty good, but the senior men's team, not so good at the moment, and they're going to feature in our performance rankings in a moment, so we're not going to get into that just yet.
Yeah, well, there's an opportunity now for the 21s to qualify for a European Championship for the first time ever. So 3-1 against Montenegro, followed up from the victory on Friday night. I know there's a lot of questions about the lack of crowd and attendance, and there was no great buzz. It felt a bit like a friendly. But Ireland were really professional, got better as the game went on. Will Smallbone has been the star of the opening two games, got 2 on Friday night, got 1 last night. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in the senior squad, maybe even by the end of this international window. Now, they do have a huge game against Italy next Tuesday, that, depending on results elsewhere, may be important or may not. Italy play Sweden on Thursday, and depending on the result of that, we'll know the importance of Ireland's final game. So if Italy win on Thursday, Ireland are guaranteed a playoff. Best result is a draw. That means Ireland are guaranteed a playoff, but a victory against Italy would earn automatic qualification. But if Sweden win, it's out of Ireland's hands, and they probably need to go to Italy, and will need to go to Italy and win next week. So they've done everything they needed to do. It looks like a good crop of players. I'm sure we'll get into what it means for the senior team, and should these players be getting a chance a little bit quicker. But yeah, certainly I think they've got the best opportunity they've ever had to qualify for a major tournament.
All right, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. We're getting into the performance rankings. You can guess who's going to be in red there. TriAthy, our final discussion about it at 8 o'clock. David Connolly is going to join us at 8:10 for more picking over the carcass of Ireland's 1-0 defeat in Yerevan. Sports news at 8:35. We're going to talk about the big non-news, really, that Phil Mickelson is doing what everybody thought he was doing, and he's taking the money. Alan Quinlan's going to join us today. 50. We thought we'd seen the low point for Munster, but it turns out we hadn't. They got absolutely spanked by Ulster on Friday night. You might have forgotten that because it was so long ago now, but we're going to talk about that. Anthony Moyles is going to join us 9:10. We will ask him about the Meath gig, but we might not start with that because we don't have 6 hours to pour over the coals of what's going on with Meath football, and then some Vinnie Perth goodness coming your way at 9:30. But at 7:35 this Tuesday morning, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to get involved in the performance rankings, now would be a good time to tell us what you think should be in the green, in the amber or the red, because it is time for the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. Our performances was just lacked that intensity.
Right, in the red. Is there anywhere else we can start with? You could have put Munster Rugby.
I thought we'd save Munster for a full-on Quinny debrief. I'm going to start with the Republic of Ireland. There's no way around this. It was a dire second half performance in particular, and a massive setback for any momentum that had been built over the last year, and raises all sorts of questions as to where this group are going, how realistic qualification for Euro 2024 is, and all the positivity that we thought was there and that we were only heading in one direction. It came to a pretty shuddering halt in the heat in Yerevan on Saturday night. So, yes, Republic of Ireland very much in the red.
It's our fault, Nathan. It is our fault, judging from my Twitter feed and from the general text and people getting in touch with us ever since this defeat. It's because we anointed Stephen Kenny as the Republic of Ireland manager, and we were the only ones who thought that he was the man for the job, and so therefore Team OTB needs to take this one on the chin.
Absolutely. Listen, that's clearly a load of bollocks, and I think you only have to look at how the Irish public have bought into what Stephen Kenny is trying to do with ticket sales and season tickets, and just the general belief that this young group is something that people should get behind, the connection that is there between Stephen Kenny and the League of Ireland. There's been a bit of a sea change in attitudes towards internal Irish football over the last year, but you have to win games, and you have to win games like this. I don't think it'll ever be acceptable for Ireland not to beat Armenia, regardless of where they are. Much like I didn't think it would ever be acceptable for Ireland not to beat Luxembourg or to lose at home to Luxembourg. The Nations League is set up so you're playing teams of similar quality. And Armenia earned their place by getting promoted. And if you look at the Nations League, Ireland really should be in League C at this stage. And Armenia should be in League B because we should have been relegated. It was only by a quirk of UEFA that we ended up staying here. But Armenia's form really since promotion has collapsed. Remember, they conceded 9 goals against Norway. They conceded 5 against North Macedonia. So even if you ignore the Norway game, this is not a team of great quality. Henrik Mkhitaryan has retired from international football, but in the second half they played us off the park, and all of the errors of the early part of the Stephen Kenny reign, which we sort of wrote off because of COVID and the constant changes of the team, they all seem to come back.
Can I just tease that out? Because I think we should be as accurate as possible here. It doesn't feel like they played us off the park, right?
I think in the second half they were a lot better.
Sorry, I actually think that the problem here is if so Ireland's style has evolved over the last 18 months. We've become a more direct team. We had Gavin Cooney on the show on Friday night, and he was talking about we actually pass the ball less now than we did at the start of Kenny's regime. It feels specifically that the challenge that we face when we are the better team, because when we are the team who is in control of the ball more often than not, and that was still the case in the second half. Like, we still controlled the ball more than they did. But that's the problem, is that we don't have any creativity. We don't have a number 10. Like, we could still be playing there now, and it feels like unless Ogbene scores from the free header at the end of the first half, or unless John Egan scores a header, which would be a good goal, like a really good headed goal from a corner kick, that we weren't going to score from open play. And it's against these teams who are solid, put a bank of players behind the ball, and aren't that ambitious. So I would say they didn't play us off the park. They did exactly what they needed to do, which was not very much, which is kind of worse.
So Ireland had 70% possession in that game. But I think in the second half, Armenia were by far, far the better team. They were happy to have Ireland having the ball, because as you say, they knew they weren't going to do anything with it. And every time Armenia won the ball back, they looked dangerous. And some of the errors in the Armenian half were beyond a joke. There was at one stage, I think it was Jason Knight played a short ball across to Jeff Hendrick. He's standing 5 yards away. Hendrick sort of leaves it, a half dummy for Cullen, but Cullen isn't ready for it. And out of nothing, they break, and your 3 midfielders are gone instantly. And that happened countless times. Simple passes. So whether that's a technical ability of the players, that they're just not good enough under a bit of pressure to pick out the right ball at the right time, or is it the system that the players around them aren't in the right place at the right time?
Option 3 is that Hendrick's not playing any football. And that, like, you know, he's a key player for us. He's played that friendly, I think. And that's all the football that he's played in the last 6 months, basically? Pretty
much. He's had one start. When he went to Queen's Park Rangers first, he got some games, but in the last few months, he's had one game. But again, and I agree with all that, and we can make the case, and you can go through that Irish team. Like, Shane Duffy hasn't played any football in the last 4 months. Nathan Collins has had a good run, but still, that was his first competitive start. Enda Stevens has had injury problems. Seamus Coleman, really seemed to struggle at times. Hendrick, as you say, hasn't played anywhere near enough football. And the front three, Ogbena's coming from League One. Callum Robinson hasn't been playing a huge amount of football. Troy Parrott's coming from League One as a very young, inexperienced player. So you can make excuses for the quality, but Stephen Kenny has said himself right from day one, I'm never going to say we don't have the players. So we have to accept the players are who they are. And I thought Hendrick at times in the first half, was playing the right ball and was doing the right thing. And maybe it is the lack of match fitness in that he just collapsed completely in the second half.
Has he had a contract now, or is there another season?
No, he was talking last week saying that while he will go back to Newcastle pre-season, I don't think he expects to stay at Newcastle for next season. So, listen, Hendrick is a lightning rod for criticism when it comes to this Ireland team. I think it's overplayed at times.
But he needs to get football. Like, I'm not criticising here for playing badly in the game. I'm like, he needs to play football. And if Ireland are going to qualify for a tournament, we actually need 20 players playing week in, week out at whatever their level is. And that's going to give us an opportunity to pick players who are in form, as opposed to, well, Hendrick's in the team because actually, if he's not in the team, who then is in the team?
Well, the alternative is you play Alan Brown. But Hendrick has been one of the best players under Stephen Kenny, so he obviously wants to put his trust in him. And Kenny's been trying to figure that out constantly as to that balance of players he knows and can trust and have experience, and the guys who are playing first-team football. And I think he learned that in terms of the defeat against Luxembourg, where he played players quite quickly after, was it the game against Serbia, and they weren't fully fit, and they couldn't play 2 games in 4 days. That's why I think we'll see probably plenty of changes tomorrow night. But the first half performance was decent, and the front three all looked dangerous at times, and it was really good movement. And while it wasn't perfect and it wasn't outstanding, you sort of felt, they'll get a goal early in the second half and they'll kick on from here. But it must be hugely worrying for Stephen Kenny, for everybody, how that second half went. Because I know you're saying they didn't play them off the park, but Ireland never looked like scoring, and Armenia looked like scoring every time they went forward.
Il Pastino 88 says, let's not rewrite history. Armenia completely dominated the second half. We had zero threat. My point isn't that I'm rewriting history. It's that actually we have a very specific problem, is that you can decide as a team, if you're not a very good team, to give us the ball and we're not able to break you down. So that's almost... So it's not that I'm saying we dominated the second half. We had more of the ball. We just have no creativity, or it seems at the moment, no clear idea of what we're going to do when we have that ball to try and inflict a game that's going to be damaging on the opposition. And that's the most worrying thing for me. So I'm not in any way excusing things. I just don't think that, like, the characterisation of it, you just need to be careful, because every bad team who ever plays against us now is going to watch what Armenia did. And I'm not saying they're all going to score worldies from 35 yards.
Well,
but
the last 3 bad teams that we've played have all scored worldies against us. Listen, this might sound like the most stupid comment of all time, but every time I've watched Ireland and they haven't played well, it always feels like we need 12 players. It always feels like we need 3 centre-backs, or we look open at the back, and we need an extra midfielder. And that's what I felt the last day, that do we need 3 centre-backs? Shane Duffy had way too much of the ball rather than a midfielder in there. But Stephen Kenny seems to have settled on this system, which means you've got the wrong players in possession of the ball at the wrong time. Like, Shane Duffy, as much as he's improved in possession, is not Virgil van Dijk.
No.
So you don't want him starting every attack. You want Cullen starting every attack.
Or Andrew O'Malley, in which case you'd be quite happy for the ball at his feet. And it's just that, again, he's only 19, so...
And he's injured.
That was my point. Stephen in Dublin 3 says, all the talk about how great our keepers are, yet none of them can get near any shots coming from outside the box.
I don't think there was anything Queeveen Kelleher could have done about that. He made a very good save early on. like those shots are not the fault of the goalkeeper. Comes out, hits the post. Like he's got his angles right. He's a millimetre away. So I don't think you can blame Kelleher in any way for the goal.
As awful as we were on Saturday, I firmly believe that we will win tomorrow and Saturday. I can't wait for the doubters to be silenced, says James McCullough. I mean, in fairness, we are playing two of the most heartbroken teams in world football in the next 6 days. So
possibly Ukraine are a far better team than Ireland right now if they go with their full strength 11.
That's the thing.
They've played 2 huge games in the last week. Now, listen, if you're a Ukrainian player, you're going to say, I'm a bit tired, I'm not going out representing my country at the moment. I think that's unlikely, but the manager may make that decision. And that texture is absolutely right. It will silence the doubters, and the way to silence doubters is to win games.
MOC says, so some players not fit and asking them to play international football in 35-degree heat. No wonder they lost. Sandy Zar says, why are Clare and Limerick not mentioned in green together? And Barbalatza83 says, no one talking about the bottle thrown at Tony Kelly as he took the sideline cut to equalise at the end of the game in the normal time, and the disgusting chants from Limerick fans at the end of the game. I didn't hear the chants, so maybe you'll update us in the comments.
Really?
You can tell us what they were.
Use asterisks for...
No, don't. It's the YouTube comments that'll, self-policing.
Anything goes.
So, that's the first thing in red. Also in red, I'm surprised. What do we got here?
The handshake. Wowzers. This was yet again, it even topped the awkwardness of the handshake in Salthill. Brian Cody, Henry Shefflin. Brian Cody leads Kilkenny to yet another Leinster hurling title. Does he do what every victorious manager has done, regardless of the rivalry? Does he stroll over and just even throw the hand out? Just throw the hand out. You don't even have to be looking at him. You can do the Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy and just turn the other way. But you shake the hand, don't you? No, Brian Cody decided this time I'm going to shake every member of my backroom staff's hand. I'm going to stand around and I'm going to wait for Henry Shefflin to march across the pitch, shake my hand, where words are exchanged, and Henry Shefflin, his greatest ever player, backtracks, shaking his head and mouthing something. This is the greatest GEA.
Isn't it great to see such warmth between two GEA men putting the incident to bed? That's what I heard.
That's what you saw, was it?
Well, that's what we were told on the telly. It was like, oh, that's great. That's a good sign now. That's it. It's all over. We don't need to talk about this. I'm like, really? Because that looks a little bit like there was a bit more to that than normal.
The great shame of this is that they're on opposite sides of the draw now, and unless one of them beat Limerick, we're not going to see Galway and Kilkenny in the championship again this year. It's hard to get away from feeling Cody has let himself down massively. Henry Shefflin is his greatest ever player. Just out of basic respect and of all the talk that's been there over the last 2-3 weeks since what happened in Salthill, I think the easiest way not to have to answer questions about this and his answers afterwards of, I don't care who's in charge of either team, it's not about managers, it's just about players. The easiest way to stop all that is you walk over, you shake his hand, you move on, you don't even need to say a word. But if Brian Cody's doing this, it is absolutely pointed, and it feels as though he's trying to humiliate Henry Shefflin for whatever reason, because Henry has gone to a rival county and is trying to deny Kilkenny and All Ireland, which it feels that this is what it is. I don't know if it's anything more personal than that in Brian Cody's head, you cannot go and leave Kilkenny and try and have another county win an All Ireland ahead of them.
Do you know, if you are on the inside of the tent pissing out and you're all pissing out together and then all of a sudden somebody's pissing in, like... There's a madness to elite sport that we as normal human beings don't get. There's a ruthlessness, and Cody's ruthlessness is something that he's been praised for relentlessly for 2 decades. It was like, player who looks to us like he's at the peak of his powers, gone from the panel because actually, you know what, we don't know why, but it wasn't enough for Cody. He saw something in terms of commitment or application or usefulness to the game plan, and he saw an opportunity to make an example of it, and everybody else suddenly an extra 15-20% of training. You can't have that, and you can't praise that without everything else that comes with it. Like, if we think back to Alex Ferguson, the greatest football manager that ever lived, according to a bunch of people, and certainly up there in the conversation with all of the great managers who there ever were, all the way back to Busby and Shankly, the modern inheritor of that. But like, you would not say Alex Ferguson was a man without some wrinkles in his character that we all find a little bit distasteful. So Brian Cody, warts and all, is what Kilkenny hurling is and has been for the last 2 decades. And so part of me thinks, like, Henry Shefflin knew what the crack was when he was taking the gig. He did not expect a welcome. He did not expect this is all grand. It's fine that you're trying to steal from us the trophy. And listen back to Paddy Andrews talking about... There was a bit of hatred there from Mayo. They were trying to steal our things. We wanted these. They were our medals, and Mayo were coming up here to steal them from us. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? On a normal level. And Paddy talks about it being a bit cultish. But, like, how do you get to the very top? Do you think Limerick don't think the same about people? It's just that everybody at the moment is together. And there is a cult belief in their ability to get through absolutely anything, and it takes you to greatness. In team sport, it absolutely takes you to greatness. But now somebody who was in there and knows everything about them, and is like, was managing half the team to Club All Ireland glory 18 months, 2 years ago, is on the far sideline plotting against you from within. It must feel a little bit like, well, not having this.
It's a compliment to Henry Shefflin, because this animosity didn't seem to exist for Mick Fennelly or for Eddie Brennan when they were coming up agast Kilkenny.
Exactly, because they weren't.
But what do you want Henry Shefflin to do? Sit around managing Ballyhale for the next 10 years until Brian Cady decides I'm done?
I'm just saying that there's a side to this that everybody's like, oh, Cody's a bad man for not doing it. It's like, well, but he gave you all those All-Irelands and you were happy enough to go and celebrate those, and you actually loved them, you lapped them up.
Oh, Brian Cody's clearly absolutely just one-eyed in this. Like, there is no major question mark in his head as to he didn't take a step back in any way. Like, he didn't think, you know what, all that criticism, all that stuff that's been in the papers, I just can't be dealing with it. It's a sideshow. I'm just going to go over and shake his hand and we can all move on. No. I'm going to double down on this. I'm going to make it an even bigger thing. Like, all I want to see now is Galway against Kilkenny again as soon as possible. Because, and I know, was it Nicky Brennan said, oh, they should go and shake hands, a public handshake before the game. Down in Gills. Heard from a few Kilkenny players since then that was the last thing that was ever going to happen. And I would suspect that most, as you say, most of those Kilkenny players who know Brian Cody, have seen him, aren't in any way surprised that this is how it ended up, that this is how Cody reacted. Yeah. And look, it's a long road with no turning. Henry Shefflin's going to have another opportunity next year in the championship, twice, more than likely, to be the big dog. And that's how it's going to be. I do think it means that we're going to see longer Shefflin in Galway. I can't see him walking away at the end of the year going, oh, the travelling got to me. It's like, right. Does Cody then anoint Henry?
Say that again, sorry?
Cody anoint Henry at the end of all this?
No.
He stood up to me.
Oh, maybe. It's like, all the rest of them, they all went up and took easy jobs. I don't know. I mean, will Eddie Brennan be in with a shout for the Dublin job? Would that be? Are they?
I can imagine he is.
Challenging enough to piss Cody off? I don't know. But either way, it's going to be interesting.
It's the ultimate insult for your county's hurlers if Cody shakes the hand of your manager.
Right. So that's in red. The handshake is in red. Or it could have been in green. I suppose you could definitely put it in green there. If you're of a mind that likes narrative. What's in the amber?
Amber. Mayo and amber. Ticking along.
Forever calcified in amber, a bit like the mosquito at the start of Jurassic Park.
I just watched Jurassic Park last night.
I didn't. Go on.
Quite frightening. I quickly discovered my 10-year-old was like, what the hell is going on here? Not as much of a kids' movie as I once remembered. But anyways, moving on from Jurassic Park. Yes, Mayo are in amber for now, but even next weekend, it's hard to see them moving out of amber by beating Kildare, is it? But yeah, they got the job done against Monaghan. It wasn't particularly spectacular. Monaghan weren't very good. Mayo were quite wasteful. They went one period without scoring for 20 minutes. Had a brilliant goal chance to settle the game, didn't take it. But still had more than enough, without being at their best, for one of the better teams in the country. So it does feel like a typical Mayo qualifier route. You just got to somehow get the job done, keep hanging on in there, hope the draw goes in your favour as you.
And it has. It has. Are you happy with that? There were easier draws, like by league position, but there's revenge for Newbridge or nowhere. It's in Croke Park. Well, now we'll see what would have happened.
I'd nearly sooner go to Newbridge than go to Croke Park. I know Mayo were the first team out, so if it was home, probably would have been Castlebar. But why is it in Croke Park at 6 o'clock on Saturday night at the same time as Ireland against Scotland, when yet again Mayo are somehow meant to travel to Dublin to fill out Croke Park? It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And we're at another situation where we'll have 35,000 max in Croke Park for a double header. Why not have it in Tullamore or Portlaoise, or don't ever recommend going to the Hyde Park for something, but something that's halfway between both counties. That means that the Mayo supporters don't need to come to the most expensive city in the world right now to have a Saturday night out. Yeah.
Can you? Is it not just possible to get in the car and go home afterwards? Over at 8 o'clock, home by 11, half 11.
Well, you take the old trek back to Achill now and see how you get on with that.
Okay, so you picked the furthest part. Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, are there no?
Listen, I'm sure the Mayo players are delighted it's in Croke Park because you know they have had more success, aside from the obvious, at that pitch probably than they've had even in Castlebar, and I'm sure they will use the wide open space to take full advantage against Kildare. But it does feel that, considering the quarterfinals, I presume will end up in Croke Park, semi-finals will be in Croke Park, that
you might not be going much further than that.
Unnecessary to have.
You might not be going all that far.
Games in Croke Park.
Okay.
Are you feeling confident? Come on, get it out there.
I'm just looking at the odds here. Mayo 5-2 on.
That's about right.
So there you go. That's what I would expect. We're all expecting a Mayo win. You know, and Mayo expected a Mayo win. Sure, look, if we keep the ball kicked out, we'll be happy. Exactly. Yeah, making up the numbers. Right, go on. What's next?
We're into green. Are we into green? At Wales. Got to celebrate our Welsh friends. I know, Ger, there's a lot of love for you there. Qualified for the World Cup.
The Welsh soccer team, Welsh soccer fans, different from the Welsh rugby fans.
I thought you were going to put in a word there just for Welsh rugby fans. They're not as great in number, generally, the Welsh soccer fans. They don't play at the Millennium Stadium anymore. They play in the Cardiff City Stadium, and it's working out quite well for them. So they beat Ukraine. A 0-0 was a cracking game. First time Wales have qualified since 1958. Somehow hung on. Ukraine were all over them for the last 15-20 minutes. Ben Davies has a sort of Richard Dunn in Moscow type performance where he's in the way of absolutely everything. Wayne Hennessy makes a load of ridiculous saves. Gareth Bale, outstanding. What a leader for his team. Considering the criticism he gets for his time in Madrid and the type of character he is, it's insane how he turns around when he pulls on a Wales jersey and how he just raises the level of everybody around him. It was his free kick. Yarmolenko scores an own goal, and obviously for Ukraine it's devastating.
Yeah.
Who, as Dan McDonald was saying, his manager said afterwards that anyone who started against Wales won't play tomorrow night, so it looks like they are going to make the full raft of changes for that game tomorrow night.
All right.
Yes, Gareth Bale, massively underestimated. I put it out on Sunday night. Up there for best British footballer since Bobby Charlton. When you look at what he has achieved for club and for country. Remember, Wales got to the semi-finals of Euro 2016. He single-handedly brought them through qualification, and then he brings them to the semi-finals of a major championship, and now he qualifies them for a World Cup for the first time since 1958.
Is he not a bit of a tribute act at the moment, the Heritage Tour? He's not actually the only thing. He is,
but he just rolls out the hits then when he turns up for Wales. So everybody's happy with that. He's a Heritage Tour maybe when he's at Real Madrid, and the speculation is that he might end up signing for Cardiff for 3 or 4 months just to get him to the World Cup. And obviously there's something going on where he completely fell out of love. But let's not forget he's won 5 Champions League medals. And
giving him a Champions League medal this year.
But he got one. He scored 3 goals in the 4 other. He scored arguably the greatest goal in the history of a Champions League final against Liverpool. He won countless other trophies for Real Madrid, performed on big occasions for half a decade.
Okay, he's pretty good. He's pretty good.
Look what he did when he was with Tottenham. He was by far the best player in the Premier League. Got them to a Champions League quarter-final. You can throw in Kenny Dalglish, Wayne Rooney, all you want, but Gareth Bale should be spoken about in those sort of terms.
I'm surprised you didn't say Steven Gerrard. Did you see Danny Murphy over the weekend saying that the best captain he played with at club level, not Steven Gerrard, Robbie Keane?
Wow.
He said Robbie Keane was a better captain. Right, fair play to Robbie Keane. Next, quickly, last green. Oh, Colm has. It's the Colm Buick show.
Can I get 5 minutes on this show without this lad rocking in?
Where's his theme tune?
Yeah, where's my theme tune?
Well, you're the producer.
I forgot about that. I forgot about it. Yeah, I'm thinking out loud here. I need my own theme tune. We all need our own theme tunes.
No, just you, Colm. We
all need them.
In the great tradition of the giant.
Well, you see, it'd also be a nice warning for the listeners if we played your theme tune.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, you can
come back in 7
minutes. They can duck out. But it was Nathan Murphy's idea to have a Rafa Nadal segment in the green, which I think is beautiful for a guy who absolutely hates tennis and everything about it. Well, anyway, I know that Nathan was glued to his screen on Sunday afternoon when Rafael Nadal won his 14th French Open title. There he is there, celebrating with the trophy. Look how happy he is. Great to see.
At the same time,
his 22nd Grand Slam overall, making him 2 ahead of Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer in the all-time Grand Slam race. And for a 36-year-old, he's the oldest ever French Open winner, basically playing on one foot. He had to numb his foot in order to play. And afterwards, everyone was kind of anticipating the big question in the press conference, is this the end for Rafael Nadal? And he didn't give us that juicy headline that we wanted. He said, we'll see how it goes. His aim is to play Wimbledon, which starts in 20 days' time. but he needs to get treatment before that. He's going to try a few things with his foot, basically going to try and sever the nerve endings to the brain that actually tells you have pain. So they're going to try and cut that out in order for him to be able to get through 2 weeks of another Grand Slam. But what he did say categorically was that he cannot repeat the pain he went through in the last fortnight. He said he was nearly in tears in pain after his second round win against Corentin Moutet because the ankle was so bad. He got through it eventually, but it's an amazing achievement, and it's easy to take Nadal for granted and his greatness. Like, he's 36 years old, as I said, the oldest ever winner, but he's playing on one foot, and he beat Novak Djokovic fair and square in the quarter-final. I think the one thing that did help Nadal was in Friday's semi-final against Alexander Zverev, which was an unbelievable match. It was 7-6, 6-all. Nadal won the first set tiebreak. Zverev had 4 first set points and missed them. It was so tantalisingly close going into the end of the second set, and then Zverev went over in his ankle, an absolutely horrible injury. He yelped in agony. It seems like he's torn several ligaments there, so who knows how that match would have ended up. But Nadal got through it. I think he was very grateful for the early ending in what was already a titanic battle, and he was just absolutely way too good for Casper Ruud on Sunday. Ruud just idolises Nadal. There's a picture of him at the 2013 French Open final where he looks every bit the boy that he was, and was just kind of honoured to share the court with Nadal. Probably paid him too much respect, but 6-3, 6-3, 6-love, I think, is the second biggest obliteration in the French Open final. Funnily enough, the biggest is Nadal against Federer in the 2008 showdown, weeks before. Those two contested arguably the greatest ever tennis match at the Wimbledon final. So, an absolutely monumental achievement for Nadal. I really thought Djokovic was going to win this, but Nadal beat him in that quarter-final, which I think really was when the tournament peaked. That was kind of the worry. I mean, that's all the way back 7 days ago. It was last Tuesday night. And after that, the Nadal-Zverev match was excellent until Zverev got the injury. But the Sunday match kind of felt like a third-round encounter because Nadal was just far too good.
He's pretty good at tennis.
It's fair comment.
Roland Garros.
Sorry?
He's pretty good at Roland Garros.
Well, no, I mean, that's not...
when we're talking about the greatness conversation, and obviously we have Nadal and Federer because there's more to greatness than just winning Grand Slams, and character comes into it. But if you're looking at Nadal and, 14 at the French, does that victory in 2008 at Wimbledon, how big an influence does that have on your thoughts around who was greater of Federer and Nadal when they're both at their absolute peak?
Yeah,
Nadal, I mean, on grass beats them.
Yeah, I like that absolutely goes in his favour about talking about the greatest ever. I don't have a definitive answer personally. I can see arguments for all three. But undoubtedly, Nadal beating Federer, a peak Federer at Wimbledon, like Federer just dominated Wimbledon as much as Nadal ended up dominating the French Open at that time. And for Nadal to beat him on what was his weakest surface at the time is probably his greatest ever achievement. I mean, you think his team are saying that this French Open win is his greatest because of all that he's had to overcome. Yeah. It's hard to believe. This time last year, nobody was saying that Nadal was going to come out on top in the all-time race, but he's won, the 2 Grand Slams so far. He's on for the calendar slam, which is a remarkable achievement.
He's relatively lucky that Djokovic is Djokovic and got kicked out of America and then wasn't allowed to go into Australia. So Djokovic hoist by his own petard.
Djokovic playing Wimbledon.
Yes, he's Djokovic. He's allowed to play Wimbledon, but at the time of speaking, he's not allowed to play the US Open. So they could change their stance on that. And who knows if he'll ever be allowed to play the Australian Open again. But he probably will. But you're thinking, look, Nadal, it's a big argument to say he's never going to win a Grand Slam again because of his injury. And then Djokovic is exactly 12 months younger. So this isn't over, this race. Like, let's say Federer's out of it. He's 40 years old. He's on 20. He might add 1. He's not going to add 2 to level it up. But Djokovic has a bit more time on his side and fitness on his side. And the only thing that stops Djokovic is tournaments not allowing him to play, basically. But you said he got a bit lucky, but he still had to beat Djokovic in the quarter-final. And he did. He won 3 out of the 4 sets.
All right. So you're saying Nadal, the figures don't lie, he's the winner. Okay.
He's the winner on paper, but there's arguments for all three. And we could go on all day about it. I'm sure you're delighted with it.
If you want to get into the performance rankings, if you disagree or agree with anything that we've done, or indeed have other suggestions, like the Munster hurling final, which for whatever reason didn't make it into the green today, which is kind of disgusting, absolutely disrespectful to everybody involved. It was one of the all-time great sporting achievements, but you can
look at the producer
at Nathan Murphy on Twitter is the one that you want to get to for that. We will talk about that in great detail with John Duggan a little bit later on. In the meantime, that is this week's Gillette Labs performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
All right, 4 minutes past 8. We're going to take a quick break. We're back with Adrian Barry, and then David Connolly is going to give us his assessment of the Republic of Ireland's 1-0 defeat at Yerevan.
Brian, you must be delighted with that performance out there. Well, I suppose it wasn't the best performance in the world, but you're happy enough to be Leinster winners.
Oh, we're absolutely delighted, obviously, to be Leinster winners. You know, the game was, I suppose, dogged, tough game, probably a lot of frees in that, but that's hurling games go like that sometimes, and we came out on top, so that's where we wanted to be.
There was a lot of frees. There was TJ with 12 of them. He was phenomenal today in all aspects of his play. I would absolutely agree with that. His free taking was just absolutely supreme, and also his overall play was top class, and you know, it makes a terrific difference for us when that happens. And overall today, obviously you met Galway before, it was a point in it that day. There was a bit of a controversial free at the end that sort of edged it in the end, but I'm sure it feels good now to get one over them. Yeah, there's no doubt. We had a tough game over in Salthill a number of weeks ago, but Galway are a top-class team, and there's always just huge competition between both counties. And over the years, you know, they have found us tough opposition, we found them tough opposition, and coming up to a game like that, nobody can say for certain who's going to win it. And out there today in Croke Park, it was dead at times, the atmosphere. Would you like to see the game somewhere else? To be honest, I have no idea what the atmosphere is like. You know, my total concentration was what was happening on the field. The pitch was obviously in top-class conditions, so you'd never want to be not playing in Croke Park. And overall, how would you sum up your team's performance? Just very, very spirited, top-class attitude, terrific work rate, and they played themselves magnificently, and the whole panel played a huge part in it. 3 in a row now. Where can you go from here? We should look at when the All-Ireland semi-final 4 weeks' time. Obviously, it's a massive challenge. It's a huge step up, and we'll have to improve every aspect of our play again. But that's a challenge we're delighted to be taking part in. And the subs that came off the bench, they made a difference. We've seen Pádraig Walsh with his point there coming near the end, and you're chopping and changing the team, so there's obviously a lot of competition for places. Well, that's about the size of it, yeah. I'm not particularly worried at all about having a settled team. We have players, really, really good panel of players, very, very similar abilities within the panel, which is a very, very good ability. So we have options to chop and change, call it what you will, but we'll just always do whatever we think is best for the particular day. And I have to ask you about Henry Shefflin. There's a lot of talk about it at the minute. Are we reading into it too much, or is there anything in it? Look, all I know is that we're playing Galway tonight. It's got on. I mean, I don't consider myself the most important person out there by a long shot, so I only talk about our team and the opposition players. Who's looking after either team, to me, is not of no concern whatsoever. Did you just end up shaking hands or embracing after the game? Look, tell you what, we'll talk about the players and the team, and that's it.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
No, you never talk about the money.
Right, so with Liverpool in the 80s, you'd no idea?
No. Well, the only idea was that Kenny was on far more than we were.
United's wage bill is significantly higher than Liverpool's. You've got players like Anthony Martial earning more money than Mohamed Salah. The problem at United is it's 5, 6, 7 different players.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. And if you sign up today, you'll get 1 week on GoDating.ie absolutely free. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Okay, so Team OTB took on TriAthy, and it was all in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. Check out whoop.com for more. It was on the bank holiday Sunday, which is 2 days ago. Adrian Barry joins us now as one of the participants. Adrian, how are you? Where's your medal?
Great commitment, Ger. Great commitment from all the team who turned up on the day. Our medal went to the man who finished the race for us, Andy. Good man, Andy. So he took away the medal first.
Right.
But no, well done, Ger. Well done for turning up on the day. Great effort out of you and to everybody on the team, indeed, who turned up. Really good.
Yeah. Nathan, how'd you get on?
Sunday was good. Nice relaxing morning. Went out Saturday night, so I had a very relaxing Sunday morning. Listen, I take my beating. It's not going to be very good entertainment or radio or TV
I do remember for the last 2 months.
The first,
you've been telling us how you were gonna do your part for the team. You're a real team guy, a company man. Yeah.
I listened, Ger. I did kid's birthday party. I just could not get out of.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You reorganised your kid's birthday party to clash with TriAthy because you were terrified of a little 4K run.
A little 4K run. Well, listen, I've done all of our other triathlons, our duathlons, everything else, and I couldn't help but notice that the duathlon seemed to be far more of a test than what you did at the weekend, and I managed to survive that just fine. The questions I have, right? I've been listening a lot to. Phelps over here talking about his swimming training and, the effort that he's been putting in. The timing seems to suggest, Ger, that you were quicker than Adrian in the water.
Oh, by a mile, yeah.
What happened there?
I was going great in the swim until Tommy Rooney, who I'd caught up on, changed his swimming style and instead of doing the front crawl goes and does a breaststroke and splashes me straight in the face. I was like,
It's the only video I've seen is it looks as though it's shallow enough that you could walk in and that Tommy may be walking while pretending to do the breaststroke.
It was shallow enough. The old water level, the water table, not great at the moment. The salmon are gathering and can't get up the stream, I'm told. So, global warming is having an impact on this too. But yeah, you could have walked it, I'm not saying anything.
So you had you'd both obviously done the duathlon, which was the run, the cycle, and then the run. So this time you're replacing the 5K at the start with the swim.
Did we both do that, or did somebody else cry off at the last moment in the style of Nathan Murphy?
I turned up.
But you didn't do it. He didn't. Did you know he didn't do it?
What do you mean he didn't do it?
He didn't do the duathlon.
He was there. I saw him.
No, he didn't. Oh, 2 years ago.
He didn't finish it.
If the head of content had looked at any of the post productions out of that, he would know that I never ran it, that I didn't do it. But look, Nathan, as he said himself, he's a bit like the Tories there. Don't worry about that stuff that went on before. You need to forget about all that now and move on. This is exactly
the previous management screwed that up.
What I wanted to ask was how much more difficult is it when you do the swim rather than a run before you go on the bike and you're coming out and you're wet and you're cold and you're having to do the transition?
Adrian doesn't know that either.
I have no answer to that. That'd be Ger.
That's what I'm asking, Ger.
He did a 7-minute swim and then retired. So fair play to you, Adrian.
7 minutes,
at least for showing up.
7:48. And by the way, look, I accept that. Literally everybody else had turned up. About 300 people had turned up on the day, apart from myself, Brian, and Andy. Everybody did the full thing.
700 in the morning and then 700 in the one after us.
Yeah, the other races, absolutely. But look, it was, and if you're going to do any leg, you must do the first one because it looks like you're doing the full thing. And so I got all the buzz out of that. It was great. I cracked. The water was colder, I thought, than I'd expected.
Really? I was going to say the water was much warmer than I had expected. It wasn't. I wasn't cold at all.
Did you get a head freeze?
No.
I got a head freeze at the start, and there was a lot of traffic. There was a lot of people milling around. A lot of people, and I know Nathan's taking the mick out of my time there, but a lot of people slower. A lot of slow people.
Even than you.
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah, I was going past a lot. Now I was going past some of them as I was walking as well on the raised riverbed there. But
very briefly, a quick shout out to Shane Hannon, who did under 5 minutes per kilometre for the. Was it under 4 minutes per kilometre?
Could have been under 4 minutes. It was insane.
Yeah, it was just over 4 minutes, I think, just over a touch 4 minutes at the end of it. So
because there's obviously internal off-the-ball rivalries, and because I, as you say, bottled it, and Adrian just did the swim, we didn't have the middle-aged man rivalry for the three of us. So you win that. You've got your medal, and you're not going to take it off all day.
Nice of you to mention that there,
Well
Nathan.
done. You're like the kids coming home from school sports day. Well done, Ger. Everyone's delighted for you. But the other rivalry was the Tommy Rooney-Shane Hannon rivalry, which in previous incarnations we couldn't tell who won because one of them did it in Monaghan and one of them did it in Clare. And Tommy, there was an awful lot of bitching and moaning of, my timer didn't work at one stage and all of this. So now that they were on the same course at the same time,
the same bitching happened. First off, Tommy forgot his runners and had to borrow a pair of runners.
I got the call 11 o'clock Saturday night.
Yeah, luckily Brian just got the same size as him. Tommy actually said that they felt better than the size he'd been asking for, so I think he's discovered a new size. And then there was a problem with his timing chip. That's why I caught him on the cycle. It fell off. He had to stop. It was he's basically the Mick McCarthy of this whole thing. They let me down.
We have to ask questions about Ger's cycling ability. I'm not saying you shouldn't be an incredibly fast cyclist, but it's quite insane how fast you are for a 45-year-old man.
For an outlet.
Were you faster than O'Driscoll?
No, I wasn't. I was a minute behind him.
All right, but even still,
he is a professional athlete.
Exactly.
I was surprised. I was 2 minutes behind Shane. I was a bit pissed off of that, but then sure, look.
But your bike was, you
literally half my
do
age.
have the best bike in the entire field.
Courtesy of, it's a loan from my good friend Specialised. who I wholeheartedly recommend.
Well done.
He's like a racehorse, isn't he, Hannon? He turns up on the day. He's like got holes in his shorts. Absolutely no gear that is appropriate to be wearing on the day. But he's just like
he literally had a holy arse.
I saw that. Did anyone go in of all the competitors without a wetsuit? Like, does anyone just go in with the Speedos and away I go?
You're not allowed, but actually,
oh, really?
I think if you did do that, it would massively speed you up. I lost 5 minutes in the transition. That was kind of where I ended up getting screwed. But at that stage, I was like, I'm just going to finish this today. Next year, however, it's on the 11th of June. They've already announced. Sorry, it's the bank holiday weekend. It's the same weekend next year. The Champions League final is the 11th of June. So we're going to do the whole thing, aren't we? All of us.
Well, I see.
It's always going to be my kid's birthday around this time of the year.
Yeah, there's always going to be a reason that they're going to pull out, is what you're saying. An email in there this morning from somebody at Lanesborough, the two provinces. Triathlon, I don't know if you've seen that. Starts in Lanesborough. I was coming along for a Ger. It's
your home territory, of course.
Close enough. She was saying start of July, 750 swim, 20k cycle and 5k run. You'd be out for that.
The running is the problem.
What was the reaction in his own hometown for Ger Gilroy, the returning hero?
You've never seen anything like it. Brian O'Driscoll. Brian who? Sorry, could you get out of my way there? Where's Gilroy? Let me at him.
I do have to say, the town looked spectacular. There's a bit on the run, which I'd never been on before, down by the river, where you're running along the river and the river's so peaceful and calm. And honestly, like, if you want to go and have a nice weekend and have some beautiful nature walks, then go and visit a Thai. It won't be 500 quid a night for a hotel room. Right. Good experience overall. Adrian, we got to go here.
Yeah, great old buzz. And the even like people were saying, you know, the competitor, you were talking about the competitors that went earlier in the day and later in the day, and like there tends to be a real like elbows out, doesn't there, like legs flailing type of stuff, whereas with that one there was like lads swimming down the pool going, "Hi Mick, I'm over here, come on, join me in this." Like people, there was a real good old community buzz about it. And for the rest of us who were only doing bits, managing to sort of tap into some of that, we got the best of everyone. No, it was great fun.
Well done, Adrian.
We'll be back next year.
Probably, yeah.
Right, yes, I'm going to have to take that one. Right, 16 minutes past 8, time for us to turn our attention to something completely different. We'll have the full video of that up in the coming days on our socials, and thanks to everybody at Whoop for teaching us how to train properly. David Connolly is with us to talk about a disastrous performance from the Republic of Ireland at the weekend and to look forward to what's coming over the next week or so. David, good morning to you, how are you?
Good morning, lads, very well, you?
Okay, so we were having we were teasing through what happened in the second half, and my contention is that it's not that we were dominated in the second half. It's kind of worse than that. Is that we had loads of the ball, but we actually don't really seem to know what we want to do with it when we have it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a hard watch really, and I'm really sure that Stephen will look back on a lot of what he done in this game. You know, in terms of the starting team. You know, I think he could have done things a little bit differently. I said this I did a podcast last week, and you know, the starting team, I wouldn't have, you know, I would have done something different on this. You got to remember as well, Ger, that these Nation League games, I know that you play for something, but they do in effect replace friendlies, right? Now, would me or countless others have got a chance to play for Ireland if there was always something at stake like the Nations League? I don't know. Whereas I got my debut in a friendly, and so did loads of the other lads who went on to get, you know, 50, 60, 70, 100 caps or whatever, you know. So if you're not going to play and risk starting players, you know, because you want to win the league, as Stephen said, I think that's a dangerous road, because I think it was the perfect chance to really experiment a little bit. And I think it's a wasted opportunity.
Are we not past the experimentation stage, David? He had probably more experimentation than he wanted in the first Nations League because of all the COVID issues. You know, it's over a dozen players have had their first competitive start. That while, yes, there's always an opportunity for one or two guys in a Festia Bazella to come in over these 4 games, and maybe Will Smallbone gets promoted quite soon from the 21s. But you still look at that squad, it's guys with 10, 20 caps that actually... We're at a stage now of bedding them in, of them becoming those established players who do go on to have 60, 70 caps, and they need to play and they need to know a system and they need to be able to perform in days like this for the qualifiers that are coming pretty quickly.
No, I know what you're saying, but there's so many nuances to football that you can't just say, those lads have had the caps, they should still be playing. Say for example, you're Callum Robinson and you've barely played. You've barely played in the last couple of months of the season, right? His shot selection is so off. Not just the other night, but against Lithuania as well. I look back at it, his decision making. If you can't go and play, a kind of a Will Keane or try something different, in terms of the top part of the pitch, Michael Obafemi, if you can't do something different away from home for the first 45 because, you're sticking to your tried and trusted, I think it's dangerous, I do. And, Callum looked a half a yard off. A couple of through balls went early doors and I think Michael would have got on the end of them. He almost did the wrong thing, bringing Michael on. I think once you've scored goals and you've had a really good season, start the kid. Start him from the off, and then at least you've pacified and you've gone, right, boom, I've given you your chance. And if he doesn't take it within 60 odd minutes, or even after 45, you can still change it. Psychologically, I think it's bad because you've got players there who performed really well at club level, and you've still got some players starting who haven't quite performed at club level and in a division below. So I think it was a perfect chance. And now I think as he did with the subs, he was caught between a rock and a hard place. He brought Michael on, who probably hasn't been used to coming on as a sub for the last 2 months. He's been starting games of football for Swansea, and then he's coming short. There's a few things I think I would have done a little bit differently, and not just the front part of the pitch.
Go on, talk us through those, because I actually thought Troy Parrott maybe would have been better off the bench. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, there's a few like that. I think, he didn't really know. They said they were surprised how Armenia were going to play. So you could have had an old-style target man. I mean, I was looking, it was 20 years to the day, Niall Quinn flicked on for Robbie to score. It could have been a Keane up there flicking on because you could then go long and go short and play through. They weren't sure how Armenia were going to play, right? But also the surprise factor of a Keane, of an Obafemi, might have just unsettled them a little bit, rather than knowing, well, he's probably going to play, Callum Robinson down through the middle. They would have watched all the videos in the last few games. Little things like that. I thought John Egan was off. I thought he was really off as a left side. I thought the disallowed goal, which he got away with, but his body position, his body shape, he got turned. He didn't get across. Duffy had to get across. I thought they had a real off day down the flanks. So there was a few things, whether Manning would have started for his ball playing ability. You're going away from home to a team you want to dominate. I think you just get better footballers in the side, And there was a few things. It's all right saying this, but I kind of did say this before the game, so I can stand by my opinion on it, which I think he got wrong. And I don't think you should be talking up too much about winning leagues and stuff. I think you just crack on with the longer term process and things like winning your first tackle, even the kickoff. You know what we did from the kickoff? I mean, you've seen the kickoff, right? The ball goes back, Armenia drop all 11 players, and we just play a 90-yard punt up the pitch. And I'm thinking, is that, there was like 50 yards of space to take the ball into. So it was a bit of a predictable start, and that's how the game went, really.
On the bigger issue of the system, David, and maybe this feeds into, changing some of the personnel as well. Like, Ireland have now settled on this 3-man defence, and Stephen Kenny puts it back to the England game and how Ireland were ripped apart, and he said this wasn't going to happen again. Feels a lot more comfortable, and it maybe plays Ireland's strengths in terms of depth, but against a team like Armenia, who, like, Ireland had 70% possession, so we talk about a change in era and style. I think the Georgia game under Martin O'Neill was 30% over in Georgia. Now we've 70%. It's a similar style result, though. Do Ireland need 2 formations? Is that easy to do at international level, where you don't have a lot with the players? Do they need 3 centre halves against Armenia, against Luxembourg, against Azerbaijan?
No, they don't. But I mean, it depends how you play with those centre halves. Look, there's no way those 2 lads in the middle of the pitch are going to cover, 80 wide yard pitch, because any good team you're coming up against will make your back 3 into a back 5. They'll push their wingers high and wide, pen them back in. The fullbacks will be going, and that'll mean whether it's whoever, Cullen or Hendrick, those 2 have got to cover the whole middle of the pitch. So there's no way, for example, I mean, Ukraine will probably change, right? Because they've had the same team for 2 games in a row now. He'll probably alter his team, but their 3 in midfield will absolutely dominate R2 in the middle of the park. There's so much work for those two to get through. And against better teams, that's going to be an issue. So I don't personally, I'm not a massive fan of a back three. A lot of these lads do play in a back three, but some of them, like Duffy, would have known from Brighton. I mean, they play a back three, they play a back four, they play a diamond at times, they play all sorts of different formations. Whether the back three for Ireland is, I do think you need some flexibility within that. And you have to encourage, if you've got a lot of possession, encourage those lads sort of, the outside centre-backs over the pitch. But then it's a delicate balance. You've got to cover them as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't be totally wedded to him. It has served him well, don't get me wrong. But I just think, we didn't have enough players in the box. Another thing, we didn't have enough players. You go back to the Belgian game, we had like 5 players in the box. On both our goals, we had 5 lads in the box. The other night we had 2.
Well, there was a good cross. There was a really good cross that came in at one stage, and there was literally nobody there. And kind of going.
There was no one there. Yeah, exactly. So that back three at times, if you're going to play counter-attacking football, you might only have 1 or 2 in the box. Little bit of possession, but breaking from deep at times and putting lads in behind. Ogbene, who was quick and got in behind well, but often there'd be, there's no attacking midfielder getting in the box because they can't, because the likes of Cullen and Hendrick have got to cover 80 yards width across the pitch plus the whole length. I mean, very rarely are they going to be making the box. They're not going to be making an Alan Brown type run.
Well,
any of them.
Is there a fix? Is there a fix? If pre-match, if you're picking that team again, you've said you would put Obafemi and Keane up front. Is that right? That would have been your 2, and then your.
Well, I would have gone for something only because I remember there was a game we played under Mick as well. We played, I think it might have been Andorra away, and we knew they would park the bus. Now, Armenia didn't park, but we knew they would park the bus. But I think he played me and... I don't know if he played me and Robbie or me and 2 little lads up top. And anyway, we just couldn't get through. So it was impossible. So after Mick, after about 20 minutes, changed it. And he either brought Quinny on or Cass, just as a different route, in terms of if we can't go through them, we can go over them and little bits like that. Now, I just think for the first 45, he could have tried... something different, an Obafemi and a Keane. I do. I don't think there would have been anything lost in that game, rather than sticking with your I think Callum needs to, and he'll be under pressure next season, Stephen, because some of these players might not be playing that regularly, and the likes of some others might be, if Michael Obafemi's banging in goals again, how can he be left out? I mean, it's he's got to be starting games. The Armenia one was perfect because now he'll probably start against Ukraine, and I think it would have been better to start him away for his first one,
I think it's something Stephen Kenny has struggled with throughout his time, is how to get that balance with players' fitness and sharpness and to marry it all together. And like Callum Robinson is the perfect example of that. You think back to the Luxembourg game where Ireland were beaten. He played brilliantly against Serbia, and you think he's just going to kick on from here. They have a game 4 days later, and he couldn't get a touch of the ball because he wasn't used to playing 2 matches in 4 days and was way off it. And even when you're going through players there, David, like John Egan didn't play well. But John Egan played every game this season. So is John Egan not playing well because he's fatigued actually at the end of the season? And we've other guys who haven't played any football, so they're not right at it. So I'm not in any way making an excuse for Stephen Kenny around this, but he needs to figure that out as to how you get the most dynamic players on the pitch at the one time. He needs to sort it out pretty quickly.
Well, I would say this as well. If you look at, say England, Gareth Southgate started James Justin, right? And James had a very difficult first half, and he took him off at half time. Now, whether he's injured or not, I don't. But the point being, there's nothing wrong with if lads are a bit off the pace, making a change early doors to go and change things. And maybe I just think in that game, you look at how Manning has played at times, like say against Lithuania. I thought he's excellent, with the ball, and I think we just needed more quality, with the ball. As I said, our shot selection was dreadful. At times we were shooting and we didn't have width when we were taking shots on from ridiculous angles. There's a few things that I know. It's not all doom and gloom. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, there's a few things that
it feels a little bit doom and gloom. It does. It felt a little bit like this is a replay of the Luxembourg game where it's a team we're supposed to be better than. We have more possession. We don't really know what to do with the ball, and we're then therefore open to fluky but brilliant long-range goal. Yeah,
I can the long-range goal. Obviously, we can. why is Michael coming short there? He's come on a sub. His first thought, you should be drilling into his ear. Your strength is in behind. You've got to stretch the game for us. Do not be coming short. He's not a link man. That's not his game. And he comes short after we've been under pressure. Cullen tries to find him to feet, when really he should be banging that over the top and then everyone can get up the pitch. But that's just one moment. We can't look too, it's more the general game,
I think it's a good point David makes as well about James Justin, who, you feel sorry for him. It's his England debut. He's a bit of a nightmare and he's hauled off after 45. It felt they were a bit slow with the changes, and at halftime, Ireland, were creating some chances. O'Bennett should have scored just before half-time. They had a lot of possession. You sort of thought Ireland are going to score early in the second half and they'll kick on. They'll win 2-0. We'll all move on with our lives. But very quickly, it was clear within 5 minutes that wasn't going to be the case. And they waited and they waited and they waited. It felt as though it didn't need just Michael Obafemi. It needed a pretty major overhaul quite quickly at the start of that second half in terms of system, in terms of players. And it just took too long. And by that stage, Armenia had just taken control of the game.
Yeah, exactly. That's in-game management. There's two types of management. There's loads of them. But, there's pre-game, you have all the analysis. And I played under some managers, who'd be brilliant at this. Pre-game, all the analysis, the video, highlighting strengths, weaknesses, how to attack teams, where their strengths lie, where they're vulnerable. Great. The other key attribute of a manager is in-game management. In-game. Right, what we planned for actually is not happening here. Like Mick McCarthy having the wherewithal to make a change. Don't get me wrong, it was a must-win game, but I think it was 25, 30 minutes. Do you know what? This isn't working. I can wait till half time. So he made a change, after 25, 30 minutes.
Did you get hauled off?
I did get hauled off, yeah. But I don't hold anything against Mick for that, because I think it was either me or Robbie. And to be fair to Mick, at times, I think we played Iran in the World Cup qualifiers, me and Robbie up top, and I stayed on and Robbie came off. But in this regard, he was obviously Robbie's, his footwork around the box. Obviously, you understand that, disappointed. But pre-game, right, this is the team that's actually in-game, 20 minutes, 25, this is not working. They are part of the bus. So there's two types of, and some managers are fantastic pre-game, doing everything with all the analysis. I think another real skill is in-game, how you affect games when things are not, this is not planning as, or I tell you what, this is going quite well. We can do something else here as well, and that's a different skill set.
Some comments from our listeners. Robert Spencer says a three-man defence can be fruitful. With Chelsea, they play Cesar Azpilicueta at right centre back. England during the Euros played Walker at right centre back. Put Coleman out at right centre back. It saves Duffy and Egan from being on the ball. Now, you want Nathan Collins in the team because he's been our Premier League defender who's got the most game time. But perhaps there is a case for Seamus Coleman being one of those three defenders, because he could be someone who is going to take the ball and not be forced or feel like, oh, Josh Cullen is demanding the ball off me, I have to give it to him. He's like, no, go on, you get up the pitch. I'm going to bring it up to the halfway line because I'm not being challenged here. Even a little quirk, a little kink in the selection might have changed things for the better at the weekend.
Yeah, look, maybe there's plenty of teams. Look, Tottenham played a three. We can all give examples of a back three, and it's right. Tottenham played a three, but they played without the ball. They play counter-attack. I saw them against Brentford, and they were absolutely dominated, but yet they got the ball into the front a couple of times and looked really, really dangerous, and had the pace of Son to get in behind and the link-up of Kane. And, they've got the front part of the pitch, which is just, absolutely off the chart in terms of world-class ability. So, there's different ways of being a three, but Ireland probably aren't at that sort of level at the minute, are they?
So, no. Danny Mack says Ireland are missing one or two regular Premier League players. Until then, we ain't going nowhere. Is this like?
Look, we've never had fewer players playing in the Premier League than we had last season. And playing fewer minutes we don't have anybody near being a superstar, and we know at international football. Look at Zinchenko. Look at Zinchenko for Ukraine, playing middle of midfield, running the show in the two games. He was unbelievably good. And we've nobody near that level right now. And that's not, we don't have the players, because I don't think we can ever give that as an excuse for Stephen Kenny, because he ruled it out right at the start has been an excuse. But you do just feel that one or two guys, Declan Rice and Jack Grealish in Ireland are qualifying quite easily. But one or two guys getting to another level would elevate the entire thing. And the question marks that are there about players not playing football, like Duffy and Hendrick should be 2 key men right now, and neither of them played a game of football in 4 months.
Yeah.
That's so. It is so. I can't tell you how important that is. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, you can't be wedded. If you're Ireland manager, we've known this. You know, down the years, you can't be wedded to selecting players who are playing or in form. We know that, right? And that comes down to the other ability of Stephen, which he's been international manager now for a number of years, obviously with the 21s as well. So he would have had this in terms of selecting players who are playing, those that aren't playing, those that might be at a better club but aren't playing, those who are at a lower level but are playing, and how you balance that out. And that's a key. That is a key skill, but it's so hard to suddenly, if you're not playing, and it puts you in a situation as a manager as well, that you're backing players obviously that are not playing football at the minute, and it puts you under pressure in a different way in terms of your selection of those players. Because how long does that continue? You know, if Travers is number 1 and playing in the Premier League next season, and Gavin Bazunu is in league, we don't know where, who is he going to play in goal? It's a nice luxury to have. Don't get me wrong, but you know, same with Quinlan. If Quinlan's not starting games, but Mark Travers is, what's he going to do? I mean, it's going to be very difficult, for example, to stick with somebody who's not playing football. I mean, you know, even if he feels a superior goalkeeper, it's difficult, very difficult.
Do you keep picking Duffy and Hendrick for now?
Well, I think Jeff's had a tough time because his loan didn't work out, but I thought he played with the ball first half. I thought he got on it, and I thought he released lads like Obafemi and Rumson in behind really well. I think they need another player in there. They need another player, whether it's Alan Brown or I think they need a 3-man midfield. I'll be sticking another one in there.
See, and again, know, like it's a relatively slight change, but if it hadn't been Parrott and it had been Brown, or if it had been Knight instead of Parrott, then the team, it feels like, would have just been better balanced, and we would have had more numbers, and there would have been a bit of cut and thrust to the ball.
Ukraine will have let's say we were playing Ukraine a game ago. They'd have a 3-man midfield, right? I don't know whether they will against us, because they might, you know, a lot of those lads now might be.
They're resting anybody who played against Wales.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have 5 games in 13 days, so this is set up for us. They have played a back 3 before. You know, they've played a similar formation to us. The last few games, they've played a back 4. So we kind of don't know. You know, we don't know how they're going to line up at the minute. However, their midfield is not going to be as strong. So our 2 against their 3 might be enough. You know, might be enough anyway. But if it was against, you know, the Zinchenkos and the Malinovskis, then I would have definitely gone with another player in the middle of the park.
Given that Ukraine are coming off a fairly devastating defeat to Wales at the weekend, what should our expectation level be?
To me or to Nathan? Well, go on, Nathan. I mean, what's Nathan? I'll chip in after.
I think, I think as David said, if Ukraine were coming and this was their first match and they were going with that midfield, Ukraine are by far and away the best team in this group. And if they're at full strength, would beat Ireland. But the fact that they're going to be a second-string Ukraine side, the devastation of what happened on Sunday, there's an opportunity at home for Ireland. It's going to be a big crowd. I think they need to get something from the game. Like, this turns very, very quickly. Lose to Armenia, lose at home. You got Scotland coming, who again you would say on paper are probably a better team than Ireland. So I think Ireland needs something from this match. I'd expect to be 3-4 changes to the Ireland team, but certainly not a game they should be losing if Ukraine are making 11 changes.
David, last word on this to you.
Yeah, I look, there will be changes, I think, but obviously from Ukraine and hopefully from us, you know, freshening it up. I think some of the lads that played, I think would probably come out. I know Sayog Bene was a real threat, and he is a real threat. He'll probably stay in the team, but I'd like to see just, I don't know, Manning come in on the left-hand side for, you know, maybe that bit of quality and craft he's got on the ball. Maybe Alan Brown come in as well. And whether it's an Obafemi and a Keane or one of those 2, you know, one of those 2. But I just think he missed a trick with not playing them against Armenia, and now he's kind of caught a little bit, thinking, right, because if you're Obafemi, you'll be going, right, is this going to be my chance now? Because what you want him to do is then whichever one of those players comes in, they then build again to the next game, which is why the Armenia one is the weaker one of all these games, should have been the one to start them in. And if they play well, bang, right, you're in for the next one against Ukraine, and away you go.
Yeah, 100%. Last one, a comment from Shifty Lad says, David's really good at talking about the breakdown of matches and tactics, but am I the only one looking at the bear in the corner waiting for it to move?
Well, it's not Ted. It doesn't move in that sort of way. I'm always in my son's it's my son's room, but it's painted pink. But he's fine. He's all right with that. He doesn't mind.
The bear's a big bear.
Yeah, we're going to need a bigger bear.
Good stuff. David, enjoy the game. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
David Connolly giving us some thoughts there on the Republic of Ireland's 1-0 defeat to Yerevan. 1-0 defeat to Armenia in Yerevan even. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. It's time for the papers.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
Okay, so there's really only a couple of key stories in the newspapers. One, O'Rourke tops shortlist for Meath hot seat is the headline on the back of the Irish Independent. It's not the O'Rourke you might think. Malachy O'Rourke, the former Monaghan manager who guided the Farney County to 2 Ulster titles, has been touted as one possible candidate. This is Conor McKeown's piece. And then also, there is, however, some hope in me that Colm O'Rourke will allow his name to go forward for nomination on this occasion, which will be very interesting. So, a shit or get off the pot moment for Colm O'Rourke if that opportunity is going to arise. And then the other big story overnight is that Phil Mickelson has signed up for the Rebel Tour. It's not really breaking news. It's kind of the confirmation that Phil Mickelson is a man of his word. He's doing what he said he would do, and he's back in the Saudis. John Duggan, good morning to you.
Ger and Nathan, how are we doing? And interesting that he did an interview with Sports Illustrated where he's admitted that he's had problems with gambling. So I quote this: "My gambling got to the point of being reckless and embarrassing. I had to address it, and I've been addressing it for a number of years, and for hundreds of hours of therapy. I feel good where I'm at there, my family and I, and have been financially secure for some time." And asked about wagering and practice rounds, he said, "On the golf course it's creating competition, but it's the anxiety, the other things that come across with gambling off the course and addiction off the course that I really needed to address." So even the wealthy are not immune from problems, and it's glad that he got the help that he obviously needed in that regard.
So the no-brainer for Phil Mickelson. The Saudi money has changed the game potentially forever. So obviously Phil Mickelson, we thought had thrown the whole thing into disarray when he called him scary motherfucker, and we wondered would that be the end of it, because Bryson DeChambeau and Dustin Johnson. I sort of mumbled it there, didn't I? It was clear. Most schools are off today, I think. Anyways, it's fine.
Not this Tuesday. They were off yesterday.
No, my kids are off today.
Are they?
Yes, a long
you kind of mumbled it, Nathan. You mumbled it.
Anyways, so they've gone about this in a very smart way, Live Golf, in that they said, we're just going to do the tournaments anyways. We're going to put up a huge prize fund, and we'll have the world number 100 win £4 million, and we hope the jealousy will become too much for the better players in the world. But also, they were left in a very embarrassing position a fortnight ago, where they'd no big names at all. So because they have endless wealth, they basically went and made Dustin Johnson an offer of around 125, 150 million upfront, guaranteed, never mind the £4 million first prize, that Dustin Johnson simply couldn't turn down. You got to think with all of these golfers.
He could.
Sorry, morals are not an issue here.
Yeah,
like
the
human rights is not an issue for, I don't believe, for 99% of these players. It's not part of their thinking at all. It's the risk of majors, it's the risk of legacy, far greater than human rights. So if Dustin Johnson's worth 150 million, Phil Mickelson, they reckon, has got 200 million up front to go and commit to this. He's basically handed in his notice for the PGA Tour, pointedly said in his statement, I will still play the majors, which is the only real...
But he hasn't said he's resigning. He doesn't want to resign from the PGA Tour. He's not resigning from the PGA Tour.
But it's hard to see it way back.
They're going to have to kick him out.
So some players have resigned. So Kevin Na announced that he has resigned, so they can't throw him out. There's a lot of speculation on tonight that Louis Westhays and Sergio Garcia are also going to resign from the PGA Tour, so they can't actually take action from them. But like, this is pretty seismic stuff for the game of golf in how it develops over the next while. And from a purely sporting point of view, I think the worry for golf fans is that we end up in a state of flux for the next 5 or 6 years, where the majors are not the majors, or the tournaments are not the the history isn't there, that we end up with majors with some of the best players in the world not playing in them. There's almost an asterisk around it, and tough luck for those players who've gone off and taken the money. But that we're in a situation like boxing where there's 5 best players in the world and we don't know really who it is, and they never actually end up playing against each other. And I think that's a very real possibility now, that Dustin Johnson and Rory McIlroy are in the same field 3-4 times a year max.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is good for anybody.
No, it's about the fans. I always think sports is about the fans, and it's about competition, and you want to see the best against the best. It's a bit like darts in the 90s when darts split in the 1990s, and ultimately the darts on Sky turned out to be the proper darts. But who's the audience for this? Unless, it becomes a situation where you have another 10, another 20. At the moment, there's no audience for this. The only thing this is about is the golfer's own self.
They've started to hire broadcasters, though, haven't they? And
Arlo White has committed, who was NBC in America's main Premier League commentator. So he's never commentated on golf, so he's going to be their lead broadcaster. One of the stories in the New York Post was his salary's gone from several $100,000 a year to several million a year. So he's not going to be a familiar voice for golf. But there is no audience for this right now. They cannot give away tickets for this event in Centurion. So I think a few weeks ago I went through the various price packages, and you could pay $8,000 and you literally get to walk in the fairway with the players for that sort of money, and they were aiming at a top class market. Now you can get the tickets for free, and it seems they still can't get rid of the tickets.
Well, that'll all change, though, after a little period of time when, it's 54 holes, is that right?
Yeah, 54 holes, yeah.
Again, this is all a load of nonsense. Like Phil Mickelson put it in his statement, it's all about growing the game, it's all about new adventures, exciting new ways of looking at golf.
It's all about their self-interest.
Like, there's the Zurich Classic of New Orleans, a team event every year. No good players playing it because they just want to play stroke play all of the time.
Yeah.
Nobody's looked at golf and thought a day less is what we need. What they've looked at is, what we don't need is a back nine that takes 3 hours. That's what golf needs in terms of speeding up. So the only reason these players are going is for money. But when you look at the money, 200 million, Phil Mickelson's never turned that down. And again, as you work your way down, one of the amateur players, they reckon, was getting 6 million up front
to show up
this.
Well, the worry for the PGA Tour is that the young guys coming out of college will be attracted by this, and they could be the players of the future. And the PGA Tour, and I haven't really heard anything from the DP World Tour either, have to take a stand, but it's difficult. You look at legal cases probably coming.
Well, Peter Lowry was on Golf Weekly last week. Peter was on the committee on the European Tour, and he'd made a few calls, and his understanding was that the DP World Tour can't impose suspensions, that is not part of their rules and regulations. It'll be fines. And
fines are meaningless.
Live Golf will just cover their fine.
It's like, so RBC did dumped Dustin Johnson and Graham McDowell. So what?
So yes, they can deny them Ryder Cup captaincy as this goes along, but I think Graham McDowell, who wants to go to Adair and be the captain, is looking at this thinking Adair is still 5 years away. A lot of water under the bridge between now and then. Are they still going to be in a position where they're denying people the Ryder Cup captaincy?
Probably not, because everybody will have taken the money. Isn't that what happens? So that ultimately everybody takes a portion of the money or enough of the money so that there's a live golf swing to the World Tour, which is an amalgamation of all the tours.
It's an existential threat to the PGA Tour, though, because they're going to have tournaments in the United States.
And so what will happen? They'll have to come to an accommodation. They'll have to work together. They'll have to decide that you can have these 2 months and that'll be your tournaments.
Don't mess with MBS, because remember, the Saudi tournament was a part of the European Tour. So they could have had him inside the tent. And look what's happened now. So don't mess with MBS.
I think that's still a possibility. And listen, when the criticism that was there of Shane Lowry, the point that Shane Lowry would have made was that the European Tour signed up for this, and I was a European Tour member, which is why I signed up for this.
Yeah.
So the European Tour were in. Now there's a divide. And I think and who knows what's going to happen. I think the most likely scenario, as you say, is that we'll end up, and actually Saudi Golf will start investing in the PGA Tour, and there'll be an amalgamation, because the PGA Tour never turn down, are not in a position to turn down billions of dollars.
They had all these player
incentive
programs last year to keep people in the hunt. But there's a very interesting article in the Washington Post that I'd recommend people read on Greg Norman, and a profile in him. And this guy is just hell-bent on pushing this through, and it seems personal, and he's fallen out with Jack Nicklaus about it, and it's got quite bitter. He would have been very friendly with Jack and seen Jack as a father figure in the game. So this is getting really, really bitter, and Greg Norman is the figurehead of that. So as long as he's at the helm of this thing, I think it's going to be quite acrimonious.
Okay. 8:49 this morning, John. We should talk about your weekend. You were in Thurles for the Munster Hurling final.
Lads, what a day to be alive. I can say to everybody, folks, I know it's expensive at times, but try to go to live sport if you can, because this is why we get out of bed in the morning. And You could just feel when you're there, this is beginning to build into something very, very special. It was a dank day. Sometimes I feel recent years hurling has got too simplistic, whether it's the size of the boss in the hurl or the slit or whatever, but I feel that the ball is travelling too far. But actually the rain and the slippery conditions made it more difficult for the players. There was ferocious physicality. I thought John Keenan, the referee, did an excellent job in letting the game flow in that regard. And I actually think the players respected that. I didn't feel it was a dirty game. And then you have all these moments where it's ebb and flow, and you really feel that the waves of the crowd assembled stadium, you're beginning to feel more of an eruption every time there's a point, and you're really beginning to feel that this thing is, the electricity is in the air. And it was akin to 2004 Cork and Waterford. And the Tony Kelly, I think it was a lady called Maeve Nidulan on Twitter, put out the video of Tony Kelly. It's had 500,000 views. Like, it's a piece of art. There should be a painting. There should
NFT.
Yeah. An artwork about it, because it was one of the greatest things I've ever seen on a sporting pitch. Now, I was in the gantry on the other side of the ground, and you can't see the ball. You're just waiting to see, is the umpire going to pull up the flag? But when you see Tony Kelly himself, the moment he hit it, he knew it was over. Like, it was, and it's funny, like, you see the little stewards, applauding, and then everybody's getting back into position. It's just the way that it just moves so quickly in terms of the players' mindsets to get back into position. And then Limerick, as true champions, win their 4th Munster title in a row by winning in extra time. It really felt like one of these 1980s, 1990s Munster finals where it did feel like a knockout game. And there was a knockout vibe to it. And whether it deserved a replay, I don't know. But that's something that the Munster final hasn't had for a long time.
The sideline was sensational. It was the speed that he took it as well, because you think of, say, a Joe Canning sideline, there was almost a deep breath, everybody's waiting. Tony Kelly didn't stop. Like, it had happened far before, and such a different technique to Joe Canning.
A state of flow.
And he was just gone. It's like, this is the biggest moment in Clare's season, and I don't even need to think about it. I'm just in that zone right now where I can just knock this over.
Such a magician. It's amazing. And I realise that we all want to see Handshake 3, but that can wait till next year. We want to see these again in the All-Ireland final in Croker. Let's see what happens in Croker when it's 80,000.
I asked Tommy Walsh after what you think who's going to be in the final. He said Kilkenny and Limerick.
Did he?
Yeah, so, which is funny, yeah. And high-speed rail, guys, 1 hour 7 minutes from Thurles into Dublin.
Really?
Like a pint in my hand at 8:09 p.m.
Wow.
In Dublin city centre. So I don't know if there's
no stops. Match Express.
Yeah, straight in. There's like every train, most trains I think going to Cork now just stop sometimes at Thurles, and there's one an hour. So I don't know if there's an economic argument for this high-speed rail arc, but
I mean, there is, certainly with everybody like now not having to live in Dublin anymore and it being too expensive and like it being 8 people to a room at the moment in Dublin. Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah,
like,
an hour to Cork in a train, a bullet train to Galway for an hour.
John, did you ever, was there any stage where you thought Clare were going to win the game?
I know you said that, Nathan, off air, but I did feel like in the last 10 minutes that we were keeping pace, you know, and I felt if we just got maybe a point or two ahead.
I thought before the Limerick goal that actually there was a chance if they could. There was there a save made?
But
and this is in the first half. You're like, oh, there's just a gap here. Go on, you need a bigger gap, and then the goal happens. It's like, Well,
the goal was sensational, but the Limerick full back line I thought were amazing. Was it Barry Nash and Sean Finn and Mike Casey and Declan Hannon had a great game. Seamus Flanagan had a great game. I thought Dave Fitzgerald played really well for Clare. Tony Kelly, obviously, some of the Clare backs. Some of these players in Clare, even the goalkeeper played well. And sometimes I wonder as well, you know, obviously for safety reasons, you know, they need to have the helmets on, but, you know, I don't know can we market these guys a bit better?
Yeah, names on the back of jerseys. It's really easy. Squad numbers at the start of the season, 40 members, name on the back of the jersey, you have your number for the whole season, and it's like Tony Kelly 11.
Well, there is that, I brought it up twice now, the photograph of the Limerick players with their tops off in the dressing room, and they're all properly flexing, and it's quite an impressive sight. But instantly, I only recognise 2 of these guys.
Yeah.
I think this is the best team, one of the greatest hurling teams we've ever seen.
Yeah. So there's a...
You're going to recognise them more, like, with their tops off from the
head
down. Oh, could you just... you're that guy.
there's a missing piece there.
You're the 8-pack.
I don't know. I felt like I've never felt like this after a really sporting event where I felt disappointed but proud. Maybe you think, Nathan, you've experienced after Mayo.
Yeah,
pushing
all the time, every year.
But yeah, probably going to be Clare Kilkenny and probably going to be maybe Galway Limerick or Cork Limerick in the semis.
It's going to be interesting. Whatever way that all pans out now, there's no dud teams left. You would expect everybody to be able to
Antrim have a scalp there, Ger.
I don't think Antrim are going to have a scalp. That Antrim Kerry game, by the way, was an absolute cracker. Again, the seagulls echoing around the empty stadium. Not quite as what you would hope for a national final. And I know everybody talks about it's important for Croke Park and everything, but maybe they would have been better served. Maybe those teams in that division should come to a deal and say it's home and away, and that's like a big crowd in the Glens of Antrim or a big crowd in Tralee watching the game.
Do you get a big crowd in Tralee?
Maybe you play the game in Fanoog. I don't know. Somewhere like...
Was there a warm-up game for the... Was there a game before the Munster hurling final?
It was a Camogie game.
Okay, so they had... Well, at least they're doing a bit more of that.
Not a dirty game, but did John not think that Peter Duggan got away with things that would have been treated differently?
The Duggans don't do anything wrong in life. The Duggans are all good.
Hegarty or Aaron Gillan, great game, but consistency and reffing needed. I thought that there was a stamp on the head of Shane O'Donnell at one point. Definitely looked like it.
But it wasn't really seen, I think, until that night when they slowed it down several times.
Oh, did it? So I didn't see I didn't watch the evening programme. Did they talk about it then?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that I saw Shane Dowling talking about it.
By that stage I was doing my Richard Harris impression with the jersey under the jumper.
I feel sorry for Gerard Hegarty. He scores one of the great Munster hurling final goals, and because Tony Kelly steps up, that's all anyone's talking about.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
It was good, yeah.
It was good. Flicking it over the top.
Yeah, it was good. This happens in hurling all the time, though, Nathan. You're like, it's
every goal Limerick score. Every goal Limerick score is.
Yeah. Well, there was definitely Kyle Hayes got the ball around the half back line. I was like, oh, goal on here, and it was just stopped. Like 4.5 seconds later, they are absolutely.
You're saying I'm too easily impressed with hurling?
Well, just watch a bit more of it. It happens every week. It is sensational.
Yeah. But it's context is everything. This is a Munster hurling final, crucial moment of the game, and have the confidence to pull that off.
He was pretty good. He's like, so and they're all in the running now for hurler of the year. Like, there's a possibility Tony Kelly gets it on a losing team if they don't win, but if they win, he's nailed on.
They need to get to a semi-final.
No, that's what I'm sorry. I'm shooing them into the final.
It's funny.
It's a trilogy this year.
In 1994, I was
draw, extra time. What happened in the last one?
Yeah,
that's the one you want to win.
Yeah. 94, I was at the Limerick Offaly game, and I couldn't believe what I saw at the end. And they'd some very painful days, Limerick. So it's amazing to see a county, and you could really feel the Limerick fans. Limerick. They just know they're dominant, and it's some turnaround in the last 10 years to see what's happened there. And obviously, the investment has been a huge part of that.
And Lohan, to come through all the shit that Lohan has come through. It's like Shawshank, into the sweet freedom on the other side, and he was so close. So close, but it's not done. The season's not done.
Well, they did this promotion, and I actually entered it. Win a house in Lahinch, where it was €100 a ticket, and I think they must have sold maybe over 10,000 tickets. So that kind of thing helps in terms of fundraising for the county.
They need it, yeah. And the fact that they're the ones putting it up to Limerick this year, they deserve great credit for it. So anyway, hopefully there's a trilogy.
The guard in the Shawshank. It's Davy Fitz the guard in the Shawshank.
You're in trouble. 8:57 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Last one. Dave Cos says, Nathan, think of Soundgarden's album to avoid the cursing. Bad Motor Finger. Soundgarden's third album released in 1991.
I never got past Black Hole Sun.
Was that
strange video, wasn't it?
Was that before that?
91. Yeah, it must have been. Super Unknown was the album for Black Hole Sun.
Was that? That meme has been doing the rounds of all the albums released within 50 days in 91. Nevermind, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, Metallica the Black Album, and 3 others, all released within 50 days.
Wow.
A peak moment in our lives when you were what, 15?
10.
8:58 this morning here. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you, John. Good stuff. Thanks very much for that. More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoons on Off the Ball on News Talk, and of course on the Breakfast Show on News Talk too. Now, time for us to turn our attention to rugby. Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Let's start with Munster. It feels like a long time ago now because the weekend was so long and so packed with top quality sport, but Ulster are really good, and so we should start there really, except that it's the end of the Van Graan era and we'll get to talk about Ulster again. So on balance, the Van Graan era was chronically disappointing. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the reality, particularly when you finish the way they finished in the last couple of weeks. I think I said this for a long time, there's no expectation that they should have won trophies this year, but I think there's been few highlights. Maybe the Wasps game, the Scarlets game pre-Christmas, Exeter, Toulouse, the win in Ulster. Sporadic highs, but you know, in fairness, they started the season pretty well. They won their first 4 league games, and I think the first kind of signs that this team could struggle was probably at home to Connacht back in October, I think. Then they went to Ospreys the week after and lost their first league game away to the Ospreys. At the time, I just thought it was significant game they should have won, and you know, you'll always look back in the league season, and if you lose a couple of games that you should have won, and they can be crucial, and it ended up being crucial for them to be away in the quarter-final to Ulster. They had the opportunity to have a home quarter-final, home semi-final, and really maybe challenge and get into the final, which just didn't happen. Obviously it didn't happen, but I think, you know, if they went on and lost the final to Leinster, put up a good fight, well, then you'd be saying, yeah, decent season, few kind of ups and downs along the way, but there's a bit of progress. And that's all the Munster fans wanted, was progress, I think. And the last couple of weeks have just taken their toll. I think that the Toulouse game, maybe it was a false dawn. It was an incredible effort by the players that day. But look, reality, you've got to, obviously the head coach has got to take it on the chin. He's managing the structure and the plan week on week. But the players have let themselves down the last few weeks as well.
The crazy thing is that Johan van Graan would still be there for another season if he hadn't taken the money and ran off the bat. Is that a big concern for the culture and the way Munster's been run, that actually nobody within Munster seemed to have an issue with Johan van Graan's reign, that they were happy to keep him on?
I think, Nathan, and a lot of people mentioned this just like around in December when Johan announced he was going, and Stephen Larkham, that it could be a problem, and it has been a problem. I think the players have switched off. There's something not right within the camp. The standards obviously have dropped in the last few weeks, and you know, people within the organisation, the last thing I want to do is be drawing a load of heat on me again, kind of talking about the structure and the deep down the organisation as a whole. But obviously in 2016, there's some things frustrated me, and I wasn't very popular for saying it, probably within that group at the time. But I just wanted Munster to do well and do better. And it's like any business, if you're not performing, you've got to peel back a few layers and see where can you improve. I know there's a desire within the group, in the organisation, and behind the coaches and all that stuff to get better, but it has to be reviewed again and looked at, and see where they improve. Essentially,
it's not like
that's 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's not like they proved you wrong, is it?
It's not, and I was probably the villain at the time, and you know, I wasn't. I was just out of frustration, and you know, I think they made strides under Rassie Erasmus. He made the team very resilient, strong, very hard to beat. They lost the URC final, lost the semi-final to a very good Saracens side, probably one of the best Saracens teams, one of the best teams that have won a European trophy. So there was real optimism that they could build on that stuff, and Johan took over then, and of course there's some highs over the years, but I think the frustrating part was probably lack of consistency, and the powers that be, Nathan, going back to your question, well, we could have been all fooled into thinking that, yeah, this is the right thing to do. Fool is the wrong word. I don't want to be disrespectful, because Johan is a very nice man, but I think, you know, they've got it wrong. And the decision makers in Munster probably, I think at the time felt that he was the man to take him forward. And I didn't have a major problem with it at the time. So in hindsight, we can all say, oh, that was a terrible decision. I think the players and the decision to announce him leaving and all that has had a ripple effect that any sort of improvements there, it affected it. And we've seen that in lots of other sport when managers announce they're leaving. I know myself, I was a player in there, you obviously try and still turn up and be very professional, but there's a little bit of edge gone. There's a little bit of maybe respect gone. And that's why I say the players have to take responsibility. Stephen Larkham has to take responsibility around the attack. The mixed messaging that comes out from him on a regular basis, contradicting people when we see stuff straight in front of our eyes around the attack, trying to say that we played well and we did a lot of good things in the match. One thing you can be rest assured of, the Munster fans are no fools. So many of the Munster fans that go to Thomond Park or go to all these games are involved in rugby clubs. They've been steeped in rugby all their lives. They're coaches themselves. They play the game, and I think it's been frustrating. So obviously, if you look back at the reign in the last couple of years, where are we going? But I will say, it's not all I think the current group of players should be playing better, and the skill set should be better. The attack should be better. But ultimately, the players required to win URCs and win European Cups are not there. That is a fact, and that is a reality. Dare I say, go back to when we won 2 European Cups, the strength and depth and quality and characters and presence we had of guys who weren't even starting. I remember the internationals all being away. There was 7 of the Munster pack at the time up with Ireland. I was the odd one out, playing on Friday nights in Edinburgh, playing on Sundays in Dragons. Like, the teams we had were, the depth that was there. So, look, there's no quick fix solution. I think it needs to be looked at again. Obviously, the structures, the school system, the club system, the type of coaching they're getting right down to grassroots level.
I agree with all that, Alan. One thing though I would say is that it looked like the skills, that the basic skills, shocking. The handling skills at the weekend, and that's not the structural issue that we're talking about. Sure, better players need to come through the youth system, and they need better investment in signings, and those signings need to work, right? But like the constant knock-ons when players weren't under pressure, that's on the players. Like that is absolutely on the players. And it's on the current coaching ticket.
And it's on the attitude of the players, how they're presenting themselves and what's going through their heads. Everybody can make a mistake here and there, but it's kind of like a poison jar that I think, I don't know what happened to players in the last few weeks, but whether it was the Toulouse physicality, the psychological effect, or did they believe that, they were after stepping up a level here and it was just going to happen. There was very little leadership in the last couple of weeks against Leinster and Ulster. Really big concern as well, because as I said, I've had this chat. I don't want to keep harping on because I'll attract attention from the current group maybe, and I don't want to do that. I like a lot of these players. I think a lot of these players have turned up and they've tried their best, but there has to be some form of looking at the leadership, the decision making, the body language, and it hasn't been good enough in the last 2 weeks and at times during the season. And I think the frustrating part, and when they look back and analyse their season, they'll see some of the things they did, the highlights, the way they attacked at times in some of those games. Go back to Clermont last year, the false dawns, the win over in Clermont last year, incredible. The way they came back, the type of rugby they played, all that kind of stuff. I could go back season by season and go through those games. They lost that final last year to Leinster 16-6 in the RDS at the end of March. A lot of COVID disruptions, but again, a final, not a shot fired. Against a very good side. So there's been too many of those. So it's the players have to take responsibility here, and there has to be some sort of change. Like, if you're going to lose, I'm going to lose like this at the end of each season. Well, you'd be better off playing 7 or 8 young fellas and seeing how they go, because...
Well, should Graham Rowntree do that? So I know Fekitoa and Fisher coming in, maybe they unlock something in the back line for next season, but if you're saying they're a long way off winning a URC or a Champions Cup, like when Graham Rowntree sits down over the next month or so and presents himself as the head coach, should he be saying, this is a 3-year project, we've got to get back to basics, we're going to be blooding a lot of young players over the next 18 months, with the aim of in 3 years' time being competitive in semi-finals and finals again? Like, is that something Munster supporters would accept?
It's a very good observation. I think maybe now they probably would. I think the problem, Nathan, and it's a really good question, is that year after year there's pressure on Munster because there's an expectation of who they are and the brand and all that kind of stuff, which some people outside of Munster will say, well, that's only a load of rubbish. It doesn't matter. Munster haven't won a trophy in 10 years. But look, Munster's still a very, very big brand. We saw what happened in Aviva a few weeks ago, the crowd, the singing, the energy that they brought to that Toulouse game, and the kind of joy, and it brought me back to the great days that we've seen so over the years with the connection with Europe. But I think, like, each year there's a pressure on a coach to try and win, and I think Johan at times has probably tried to pick more experienced players over younger players at times. Now, he has brought through a lot of young players, so that has happened, but we probably haven't seen it consistently enough. And maybe it's a case of start again, rip it up for Graham Rowntree, and everybody's got to prove themselves again, no matter what number of caps you have for Ireland or whatever, and we start playing younger players and go down that road. Because look,
it'll be interesting to see what he does.
It probably is a 2 or 3 year plan now. It probably is a 2 or 3 year plan, unfortunately. Whereas this,
that's the end of Peter Manny's career, though.
And Conor Murray,
it's
they're
sad, and it's
greatest ever players, and they win nothing for 10 years.
Yeah. Alan, we should obviously, and you'll get more of the Munster conversation on the Red 78 podcast, but we should have a word for Ulster, for whom this was a signature win.
They were brilliant. Yeah, they were brilliant. And do you know what? The funny thing is, Ger, and I mean this respectfully to Ulster, at times they didn't have to do anything extraordinary. They didn't have to work incredibly hard to get their tries, to change the kind of picture of the game. Munster had moments in that first 20-30 minutes when they were in Ulster's 22 and they looked like they were overpowering them. They were going to score tries. They were going to control the tempo of the game, but too often, again, as we spoke about, the turnovers happened. But Ulster kind of changed switch. They had a few early mistakes themselves, and then they become really accurate. To score 2 tries at first phase at that level would be incredibly pleasing for Ulster, incredibly disappointing for Munster. James Hume was brilliant. I think he's
straight in the Ireland team for the first test. If you're picking the first test this weekend, is James Hume starting?
Well, the problem James Hume has is Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringrose.
I don't know. I think James Hume, you got to put him in the team. Otherwise, otherwise you're just picking on. We always pick this, which is what Munster do. But Ireland, surely, James Hume's performance in that game is the best performance from 13 in a high level match that we've seen this year, right?
He was superb. Yeah, absolutely superb. He's strong. He's developed his strengths more. He's really physical. Lovely stepper as well. And he's been really, really consistent all year for Ulster. So, yeah, there is an argument that he should go straight in there. And it's very hard. Gary Ringrose wouldn't be too happy, or Henshaw or Bundyaki. But
you keep them all honest,
maybe
though.
Maybe you just roll the dice with him World Cup next year and see if he can throw him in here to deep end and say go and play and show us some more of that. A different level, different step up. Maybe you wait till the second test and see how it pans out. I don't know, but look, he was superb the other night. Timoney was brilliant as well. I was disappointed for Alex Kendellen because I think he's obviously been an academy player this year. To step up the way he's done has been brilliant, but Nick Timoney kind of changed gears the other night and was superb. So he's kind of put himself back in the pit. And I said this before the game, a couple of battles on there for maybe places on the play to New Zealand. Timoney, outstanding. John Cooney was brilliant as well. So their accuracy, Balakoon, what a player, coming on a pace to try 7 tackle on Joey Carberry. So without overextending themselves. They just struck at different moments and didn't have to batter away at that Munster line, and were brilliant.
We'll get to preview the semi-finals. We'll talk about Leinster and what their win means for the relative strength or otherwise of the league, because it was a bit of a humiliation for the league. It felt like when one of your quarterfinals ends up in that score. But we're out of time, unfortunately. We got a little bit sidetracked, obviously, by the end of the Van Graan era. Alan, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Thanks, Eds.
Cheers, Quinny.
You'll hear more of that on the Red 78 podcast this week with Alan and Niamh Briggs. It's 9:15 this Tuesday morning. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio today. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is James McLean in studio speaking with Nathan. Splonk at 3. Career retrospective Darren O'Dea at 4. OTB Gold is Barry Ryan's The Ascent, and the show is live tonight with Will O'Callaghan presenting from 7. A reminder,
the beeps on for that James McLean interview lunchtime.
Oh yeah, OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. You could do the live beeps in the same way that you failed to do the live beeps earlier on.
It was one of those moments that listen, his answer was magnificent when I said, and what do the opposition supporters say to you when they're abusing you?
He told you the truth.
He told the full truth.
Well, that's good. So I think that we shouldn't shy away from understanding what people are actually going through.
Why am I getting stick for just repeating?
Because you said you dropped an F-bomb at 7:45 this morning. Where you're kind of halfway through dropping the F-bomb, you're like, oh, I've actually said this word now, haven't I? I may as well. Hung for a sheep as a lamb. Anthony Moyles is with us. Anthony, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How are we doing?
Very good. What's going on?
Not a lot. Very little, as a matter of fact. Just another week in paradise. And congratulations, Ger, on winning your... I hope your coveted medal there. I hope you wear it around the office all week.
He will.
It's something to behold, and fair play to you.
Just delighted Nathan's in the studio so I can rub it in,
Yeah, well, listen, it's all about taking part, really. We can all find excuses when we want to. It's making an excuse not to be there. That's it. That's it. That's what you have to be. So listen. Anyway, congrats.
Thanks very much.
Well done.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. Tyrone were a rabble in the end.
Yeah, they were a rabble, all right. Well, we've been kind of looking at it all year. Obviously, some distress in the camp, something going on, numerous players leaving. We touched on it earlier on in the year. Why would you leave if you were in a panel that potentially could go and win a second All-Ireland? One or two guys might have personal reasons or different things that's going on, but the amount and just the sheer number of fellas leaving kind of gave you an inkling that all wasn't well. They were different, to be fair to them. I think they were a lot better than they were against Derry. And when I say a lot better, I mean they tried. I watched numerous occasions where they were chasing back, and that energy and that kind of enthusiasm and that desire to get back and stop an attack or whatever it was, which wasn't there against Derry, was there. So to be fair, I don't think they went out on their shields. They didn't just go out with a whimper, but it just wasn't happening for them, Ger. It just wasn't happening for them. The defence has been leaky. They have been devoid of any kind of real idea of who their six is. They've been chopping and changing the team. Some of the changes that they made in the defence, just didn't work at the weekend. And, Armagh really probably could have bet them by 10 or 11 points. And when you look at it, a lot of teams... it's funny, you might have said before the draw, geez, I'd like to avoid Tyrone, but actually Tyrone were the team nearly to get, because once you got on top of them, I think the failings that they've had and the lack of energy and just the fact that so many players are off form just came back to haunt them.
Armagh's reward is a game against Donegal. It's like, great, haven't seen you in a while. Oh wait, hang on a second, we know each other all too well.
It's kind of like sneakily they've kind of done this Talton Cup North and South divide. They've kind of managed to do it in the old hot balls, cold balls syndrome in the thing, because I'm amazed, like you look at the other side, Cork, no disrespect, but they get Louth and Limerick, and Armagh get Tyrone and Donegal. So That's going to be a cracker. Donegal, I think it's all a mental challenge now. That kind of first round of the qualifier when you get beaten and you have to go in, whether it's after a provincial loss or whatever it is. That's the mental side of it is the big thing. It's how the management team and the players pull things together post the loss, which is a sickening blow really to you, and it's like a wake, it's like a death in the family. It takes you about 5 or 6 days to kind of get through it. Then it takes another 3 or 4 days, depending on rows in the camp and people pointing fingers and everything else. So it's you generally do need a minimum of 2 weeks to get over it. But Armagh would be licking their lips because they would feel that they owe this game and that they that they're battle hardened now and they go in with a lot of confidence, whereas Donegal won't.
What about the Mayo performance against Monaghan? At one stage the shot efficiency was dropping to like catastrophic levels, and yet still they managed to win the game, which maybe is all that needs to happen.
Kind of a good team, Ger.
Until they get to Croke Park, and lo and behold, they're in Croke Park. I know nobody seems happy about it. I'd say James Horan is absolutely delighted the game is in Croke Park.
I love the fact that in Owen's absence, Nathan is just going for the complete opposite of the era. He's just bigging them up, like
just can't help ourselves.
Unashamedly so, which is the Mayo way. You know what? I agree with him. I think they got the job done. They racked up a decent score. I thought Monaghan were a little bit abject. I thought the game was very cat and mouse until the black card. Mayo made hay then. I think they could have won by more, but at the same time they could have absolutely blown it with the last kind of 5 or 6 crazy minutes. Mayo will always come out looking confident. They'll always have the chest out. They look well. They'll flash a couple of scores. But there's always that inkling, especially when they're going through the back door, that it's a kind of a veneer. It's just there on the surface, and that if you crack it, that you might get in underneath it and that you might expose them. And to be fair, I think if that Monaghan game had gone on an extra few minutes, I think Monaghan could have caught them, because they were really teetering. They were like, the Aidan O'Shea hand pass, which should have been a penalty.
Oh, it's like the Dubs last year when they're passing back at their own goal line. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, and it's a real lack of. It's not a lack of ambition. I think what it is it's a fear, and it's a fear of going on and pushing up and actually saying, you know what, we can go on and kick on in this game, and it's a kind of what we hold. And of course, what ends up happening is you fall back within yourself. Players come back, and you pull teams onto yourself. So the pressure actually builds, because you're trying to get out of your defence. You're seeing Monaghan fellas all over you. You're making decisions that you probably wouldn't make. The referee is probably giving the opposition team a bit of an opportunity. So he's not really giving you easy frees to get out of the defence or whatever it is, and it just heaps more and more pressure. They'll get a lot of confidence from that win.
Are they trying to prove something in those last few minutes? Are they trying to prove something around game management? Because it doesn't feel like game management sits well with this Mayo group over it's 100 miles an hour. It's keep kicking on in the last 10 minutes. We're actually trying to sit back and play that, Dub style possession football, keep it in our own half, 100 hand passes. That doesn't seem to fit with the skill set of this Mayo group.
You could be right, Nathan. And I think, often what if you watch Dublin or any other team when they're doing it quite well, is they will do it for a period of time, but then they launch like a long kick out to a kind of an outrider, a person who's just gone up the pitch, in behind the defence or the opposition offence, and tried to get in behind and tried to get a score down the far end or even get a free. So in other words, someone like a Matty Ruan just takes off, you give him the ball and off he goes. I think that idea of game managing in your own half, or even from your own 30-yard line back, is dangerous stuff. And especially when teams are pressing so much and looking to turn the ball over and are so adept at doing that. So yeah, is it a thing? I don't know. I think the point that you make on them being 100 mile an hour, that's the way they have to play. And that's the way when they tore Tyrone open, which they did. They could have had another 1 or 2 goals themselves. McLaughlin had an opportunity which really he should have stuck away, set up brilliantly by Killian O'Connor. But I was a bit more impressed with their balance in the forward line. O'Connor's obviously getting back. He's got a few number of weeks under his belt with regard to training. He looked a bit sharper, and I thought some of the positional changes in the forward line were interesting. They still didn't set the world alight, And I think, but again, they're coming into a situation now, again, against a team just like a la Donegal, that have the physical scar or the mental scar and the physical scar of the Dubs absolutely trouncing them. So it's all, again, how does Glenn Ryan and the boys, how do they treat the video sessions and the recovery post that Dublin game? Do they look at that first 20 minutes, which we touched on, where there was unbelievable defensive errors, which allowed Dublin to have
hopefully they do look at it a bit and go, okay, let's not do this again. Let's do something slightly different, lads.
Yeah. Let's football 101. Here's the first lesson and the last lesson of tonight. Let's not do this. Let's not have this abject defending it. Well, I think they'll have to have like those Kildare players will be feeling absolutely desperate after that game. They have to give them the confidence about the second half and about how well they attacked and how well they transitioned and some of the scores they got, because there's no doubt about that. The forward line in Kildare is well able. But those defensive errors, that'll be crucified against Mayo too, because Mayo have those strong runners coming from deep. And if you watch, most of the goals that happened against Dublin was fellas switching off to runners, not knowing who they were going with, not communicating correctly. And if you do that against Mayo, you're going to get absolutely opened up. So you have to go wherever that runner goes to, whether it's Lee Keegan or it's whoever it is, you have to go with them.
And look, Mayo beat them fairly handy in the league. In the end, it was 8 points, but I don't think it was as much of a competition as some of the other games that Kildare played in Division 1. So Mayo, strong favourites for that, back in Croker, and probably one of those teams that none of the provincial champions actually want in an All-Ireland quarter-final, but we'll wait and see.
Banty was having a right old moan after the game, wasn't he, about that penalty? Like, in terms of teams being screwed over and a McEntee been involved, I think, Anthony, we can all agree it wasn't in the top one.
Wow.
It's on 3 or 4.
I mean, certainly the All-Ireland, you don't even remember this, but there was a square ball that wasn't in the Down Kildare match in 2010. We would have got to an All-Ireland final against Cork. So it does seem as if sympathy was in short supply for Monaghan at the weekend. Anyway, to move swiftly on, how is your candidacy for the Meath gig coming along, Anthony? Do you want to announce it right now, live on the air?
I think I'll hold it. I think I'll hold that in my pocket here, if that's okay. I haven't checked the terms and the conditions. The small print would be vital, I think, in that particular role. No, it's it's a sad state of affairs. I think first of all on the game itself, I think people who were going in thinking that Meath were going to win this well or in any other way were completely, those thoughts were completely unfounded, because I think Clare and Meath are pretty much close, and the last number of years, the battles that they've had, it's been a point or two either way. So Clare fully deserved the win. I think Meath were I just looked at the highlights. I wasn't at the game, so I can't really comment. But looking at the highlights, the one thing that jumped out at me from the TV was a lack of energy, a lack of enthusiasm, a lack of intensity. And the Meath guys just looked like, they were just waiting to be, basically put to the sword. Bar a couple of great saves by Harry Hogan, it could have been a lot worse. And fair play to Clare, they kick on they go. So, Andy obviously announced his resignation last night. That's 6 years. And, I know Andy well. I would consider Andy a friend of mine. And, Andy has put massive amount of work in. He came with a great CV, as you guys know, like with Ballyboden and different things he did in Meath. He was probably one of the, I suppose, the guy in Meath at that time who had won the most at club level and had shown that he had the capabilities to do it. I think he tried well over, I think I saw someone putting up a tweet yesterday with the amount of players that he's tried, and from the amount of clubs, it's over 30 odd clubs have been used and well over 100 odd players. So it's not like he didn't go scouring the county to try to get talent. Now, some might say, did he chop and change too much? I don't know. If the players are there and they're putting their hand up and they're consistent, well, then they stay in the team as far as I'm concerned. And if they're not there, well, then you have to go find others. It's like, lads, honestly, intercounty management is not for the faint-hearted. It is an unbelievable task. It's a 7-day, 24/7 job. That is what it is nowadays, between the organising of the sessions, the video sessions, the analysis, being there, you know, and whether whether you have a big backroom team or not, if the main man isn't there, the players will look, or people will understand and say, you know, well, why isn't he here? And all it takes is one to kind of say that, and next thing, it just starts to spread. So you need to be there. You need to be present continuously. And, you know, I know Andy has put an enormous amount of work and an enormous amount of commitment into that team, both on the field and off the field. He's very, very good to fellas off the pitches, helping them out with work and different things and introducing them to people and getting things sorted for them. And that's what it is. It's an all encompassing role. You know, it's not just you go out there and you train for an hour and a half or 2 hours on the pitch and away with you. It is an unbelievable role, and it puts your life on hold. So, you know, to say, you know, Meath have a body of work to do to get the next person in, because it's going to be a very, very important appointment. And I think anyone who puts their hand up and goes, "Oh, I can solve this," I think they're talking absolute BS, to be honest with you, because I think there's multiple layers that have to be solved, and it goes from the top all the way down to that person and further down. So it's not just a thing of, oh, let's get a big name in here and we'll, you know, just throw a number of people around him and should we have loads of talent. The talent was there. The talent was there with Andy, but was the character there, and was the, you know, the kind of, I suppose, the real desire to push on and to win and to do all the different things that need to be done. I'm not so sure. And the first thing that has to happen is those players who have been left behind, who are now waiting for a new manager, a lot of them will have to have a good, long, hard look at themselves. And, you know, Andy has fallen on his sword, as has his management team. But, you know, in both the Dublin game and the Clare game, you know, a number of those players will have to take, as I say, a good, long, hard look at themselves and wonder, you know, do they have what's needed to go on? And I'm not just saying play for Meath or play for another. You know, a lot of people can play for an inter-county team.
It's to win.
It's what you can do to lead that, and to really push it on and make the difference.
All right. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we'll come back to all that a little bit later on in the summer as well. Anthony, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us.
No bother, lads. Talk to you soon.
Anthony Moyles giving us his thoughts there. So give me your prediction for the score. Mayo going to whoop Kildare, or it'll be a close game?
No. As Anthony pointed out, it's a bit of Yearism needs to take place, I think.
Too late.
Dead cat
You've already
booked there, surely.
You're booking the hotels for the All-Ireland final, you were saying.
Can't even get the hotels. My main takeaway from the weekend is, do I need to revise where last year's All-Ireland final is in Mayo's list of what might have been, considering
how bad Tyrone were this thing?
Bloody hell, like.
The handy All-Ireland you coughed up again. Story of your lives. 9:32 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Next up, Vinnie Perth's reaction alongside Nathan to Ireland's performance and result against Armenia at the weekend. We will see you tomorrow. Best of luck.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Marginal gains, XG, top speed, recovery, what's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. And if you sign up today, you'll get 1 week on GoDating.ie absolutely free. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Shot from distance. Oh! Armenia score a sensational goal in Yerevan. The Republic of Ireland find themselves behind with 16 minutes remaining. Absolutely nothing that Quinlan Kelleher could do. Must have been all of 30 yards out. Smashed into the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah, he plays for Krasnodar in Russia. Edward Spertian with that 1-0 victory for Armenia. A brilliant goal from outside the box in the second half. Nothing that Quinlan Kelleher could do about it. We should have possibly close down the player instead. You can text us 53106. John Duggan with you through until 5 this evening, reacting to this breaking news, this result. We had the full commentary there with Nathan Murphy and Vinnie Perth. And let's go back to our match summariser, the former League of Ireland winning boss with Dundalk, Vinnie Perth. And Vinnie, this is a setback, no question about it. It just kind of conjures all the memories of Luxembourg at home, Azerbaijan at home, and there seems to be a consistency issue with the Republic of Ireland team.
Yeah, I don't think we can have too many complaints. Those of us who have supported Stephen have given him the backing and went on shows and different things and said there was something building with this Irish team. Look, I think they've moved a long way from where they were coming. The rebuild needed to happen. But this is a hammer blow to that. This is a really difficult night for Stephen, for the squad. Not just the defeat. Defeats can happen, but I think the performance in the second half and albeit the first half was good, we just ran out of ideas, John. We didn't test their goalkeeper. We are a superior side to them on paper, and it didn't work out that way in the pitch. And Stephen and the staff have got some questions to answer on that result tonight, and they'll get criticised heavily. And it would be difficult and hard to argue with some of the criticism coming their way.
It's flooding in here on Twitter. Queeving in touch to say being behind Kenny 100%. However, at some stage you have to start delivering results. Back to square one again feels worse than the Luxembourg result. Joseph Lennon, terrible day for Irish football. We haven't turned up again against a supposed minnow. Where do we go from here? Lipsy, we seem to be trying too hard for the perfect final pass into the box. No one willing to take a shot on themselves. And Declan Furlong, that was really terrible. Nothing much more to say. To the outlandish texts, some of them 53106 is what you get when you appoint a guy with a CV barely one step up from a fantasy football manager as the National League manager. Let Robbie Keane take the squad for the next 3 games, then find a proper manager over the summer. That's from Colin. Colin, that is way too harsh. That is completely over the top, that text. But thank you for texting in 53106. Is it the case that players are tired at the end of the season, Vinny, or Stephen and his coaching staff haven't had enough time on the pitch? Is it the heat? What could you pinpoint the reasons were for such an abject display in that second half?
No, it's the same for both teams, John. Look, they have a couple of players playing in Russia, and obviously there's very little football being played there, and their season's over as well. No, that's just they're just excuses, to be honest with you. It was just a lacklustre performance. It wasn't good enough. I suppose. I'm not defending myself, but to put it out there that, like, I spoke before about the shape and the system. I think it suits when we play the bigger nations. If you think about it, our best performances have been against the bigger nations, where we struggled against some of the lesser nations. And like, Seamus Coleman is a national hero. He's an outstanding footballer. He's been brilliant for a long period of time. But I don't recall once him making an overlapping run to hurt the opposition down the sides. To be fair, Enda Stevens done it sometimes, and we lack that. And this sort of 3-4-3 shape is very good. But when you're playing against a team where we'd over 65% of the ball today, and we've had 2 shots on target, tells you, for me, there's something wrong with the system, something wrong with our style of play, and it's not just the performance. There's a little bit. The staff have to have a hard look at that, I think, and it's just hasn't been good enough. When you look at the goal, there was a catalog of errors. Obafemi's come on and hasn't done well enough to hold the ball up. He's got punished, and they've taken the big moment and scored. And the problem with it is, as much as we 65% the ball, you wouldn't say we were harshly treated by that result. It's probably a fair result come the end.
Kirsten Rodriguez for Luxembourg, Emin Makhmoudov for Azerbaijan, Edward Spursyan for Armenia. The common denominator is shots from outside the box. Is there an issue with concentration, switching off, closing the player down? It's happened before.
Yeah, it comes on the turnover. Egan and it was John Egan and one of the Irish defenders. Both of them went for a ball, and it ended up at Josh Cullen's feet, and he tried to pick Obafemi's feet out, who got out muscled by their centre half. And then, like, the Armenian midfielder has the ball, he checks inside Jeff Hendrick, who throws a leg out. It'd be harsh to be critical of Jeff Hendrick from that one, and he shoots from distance, and the goalkeeper can't do anything about it. Look, we've conceded some really good goals in those lists you've given, but at the same time, look, we've got 2 sitting midfielders in Hendrick and Cullen. You'd like to think they can close a lot more of the shots down, but yeah, on that goal there today, it's hard to say it's a system error. It's just it's a bit of brilliance, and But I think the problems are deeper than that in terms of what's happened there today. The problems are a lot deeper than that.
If they're deeper, what are the deeper problems?
Well, we haven't created enough goal-scoring chances. Our front three have played really well. They're exciting front three. Robinson is really good player, as we know. Chiedozie Benya has been a live wire for Ireland. Troy Parrott played really well at stages, coming in off the left, getting some shots off. They were blocked, but he was a threat. Their inter-movement in the first half was really good, but we haven't seen, and I go back to it, we haven't seen a Seamus Coleman on an overlap with a brilliant cross. We've seen Enda Stevens do it once or twice. We haven't, when teams play with that back three, you think of the ones that spring to mind. You think of, say, a Chelsea. You see Astler sometimes playing right of a tree, and he breaks into that space, and he's putting the ball out to Reece James, who's really high up the pitch, and a brilliant delivery. We're not getting that from our players, and because we have a lot of the ball, but we're not making enough forward passes, and we don't have enough dynamism, enough real high energy players when we play against a team who are going to let us have the ball. And that's where I see the slight problem.
So against weaker teams, it's maybe a 4-4-2 or something like that, a different system, different types of players, and then maybe against the other teams that you need a bit of experience, it's a different
look, I'll probably get some criticism for this. First of all, I'm speaking about someone who's a personal friend. He's the head coach, worked with him for a long time, and I'm sitting in the cheap seats. I'm watching the game from the stand, so it is easy to come up with this. But yeah, whatever that system is, whether it's 4-2-3-1, whatever it is, where you've got two fullbacks are willing to get on because you're dominant. You've got two out and out wingers, and we have them, I feel, in the team. Whether it's even a Troy Parrott playing off the left to allow Enda Stevens as a natural fullback getting forward and crosses into the box, and whether, I know we don't have the 10, and Will Keane wasn't brilliant in when he's come on and what he's done for him. He's been brilliant for Wigan. Alan Brown gets goals from that position. I just think we need to change our system. I've said it before, but I think we need to change our system against weaker teams or teams that allow us to have 65% of the play.
The good thing, I suppose, is that, Finney, we can put it right on Wednesday against Ukraine. It's going to come thick and fast, these games. Yeah,
the concern will be, we've seen Ukraine against Scotland, and I thought they were outstanding in that game. What does Ukraine have had some big games. The rest of the world will want Ukraine to win as well. We've seen that when they were playing Scotland. So I suppose the hope is the emotional sort of energy that Ukraine have had to expend in those games. They play Wales this weekend. Will there be much left in them when they come to Dublin? And that might be a little bit of luck that we need. But we need a big win soon now. And Stephen, the staff need it, and the players need it. And to quieten the noise around this team, there's going to be a lot of noise around this team over the next couple of hours and days. And it's hard to argue with and make a case for where we're at the moment.
Yeah, well, we see excellent performances against Portugal and Serbia, but if you can't beat the weaker teams, you can't progress. And I think that's the worry that we have, that we can't put to bed the weaker teams, and it's been a consistent trend. So, are the players? Are they going to be? Is there confidence an issue now in the next few days? It's very important, the tone that's set and what is said and what work is done. These are a very important few days for Stephen Kenny and his coaching staff.
Yeah, it's a huge few days for the staff, I suppose. And one thing is, they've been here before, they've had some disappointed results, and they have at different stages bounced back, so they'll have experience of that. Look, I would say we've a really strong squad. I would say the players that come off the bench today didn't make enough of an impact. So players have to take some responsibility as well. But ultimately, it's the manager and the staff who are going to get the criticism for today. So, no, it's a difficult couple of days coming up. I think it helps that there's a game very quickly to focus the mind. I don't think it would have been good if this was the last game of the summer and we would have had a couple of months off. For people to, discuss this. I think it's important that they bounce back and get ready for Ukraine, albeit I hope and suspect there'll be a weakened Ukraine on Wednesday, but there will be some excuses in terms of the heat, in terms of the championship season has finished a while ago, the premiership season, but that's the same from all teams at international level, more or less, so that's not good enough. Tonight's not good enough, and we've got to look in the mirror, and this is, as I said, hammer blow for the rebuild of this Irish team under Stephen Kenny.
Any players that did well that you felt?
Well, look, Jeff Hendrick was really good in the game. He created a lot of. He had a real forward-thinking mindset right up until sort of the later stages of the game. I would say to you, like, our players didn't particularly play too bad. We just didn't create enough chances, and you would say our weaker players were probably Egan, Duffy, and Seamus Coleman, and they didn't give us enough. Josh Cullen was quiet. I have question marks. I think he's really impressed me of late, but when you play in that deep position against a weakened team, that's when you've got to be brilliant. That's when you've got to pick those passes, forward passes between the lines, and he's got to do more of that for me. Look, the front three are really good for him. The front three, whatever combination we come up with, there's something to be excited about, something we can build on there. But now, John, it is a difficult day for us.
Yeah, Benny missed a good chance before half time, didn't he? Anybody you'd bring in then on Wednesday?
Oh, look, I think we've got to freshen the team up. Alan Brown came on, had good energy. The game was gone against us a little bit. We'll have to assess where Ukraine are at, how the result goes from the weekend, what sort of players they bring. You know, I'll give you one example. If Obafemi hadn't come on today, we'd be calling out for him because the form he's in, but he came on today and was poor. Will King came on and was poor enough as well, so you wonder whether Seamus Coleman can go again, and if he doesn't, who can play in that wing back position? I know Chidozie Obenya has done it for a club level. I'd like to see him go there because give him a go in that sort of wing back position if we're going to stick to that system. And Stevens done quite well today, hasn't played loads of football, so there's a lot to sort out in this team. It's going to be a difficult couple of days travelling back and getting the team ready to go again. So Jason Knight didn't do well when he came on, but you'd like to think we probably need him in the team and his energy.
Well, hopefully be a full house on Wednesday night at the Aviva Stadium for Ireland against Ukraine, and hopefully the result will be better than that, because that's not a good day. But Vinny, Perth, we got to wrap it up. Thanks so much for speaking to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk, and we'll chat soon.
Appreciate that, John. Thank you.
Vinny Perth there after the 1-0 defeat to Armenia in the Nations League opener in Yerevan. Remember our football coverage on Off the Ball thanks to Sky, proud partner of the women's national football team. Out Believe together, and we can go anywhere. You can text us any comments or
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor.